Yeah, it was yellow
No,
here yesterday
just
too.
one night it was like that, yeah.
Yeah. What was it? Why was it yellow? Was it a harvest moon?
Um, guys, this might be going live in a minute.
Yeah. No, it is live. I've just got a notification.
Welcome.
I don't know how I
Thanks.
did that, but
You see, you're a multi-talented man. That's impressive.
Either that or you got good friends.
So no, Adam, it was yellow on
yeah,
Friday
cheers, James. You got me
night,
there.
but it was raining last night, so I don't know.
Right.
I didn't catch the moon last night. But yeah, Sirius was reds and greens and blues in it, I think. And did you see that little photo? It looked like I don't even know how that happened.
It's interesting. I don't. We've got lots more testing to do, but you're getting some really good results now. You see, you struck gold.
Absolutely, you're getting some really good shots.
So it's clearly my only concern is if you've got 20 times less zoom, whatever it is, and we're getting similar size shots, it could be an out of focus issue. But I think we need some lenses, don't we? Is the next thing to look at is putting a lens on it.
They're pretty expensive lenses.
Well, I've had a little look. They range from like 200 quid to like eBay saying same sort of thing, doing for like 7 or 8 quid. So I'm going to take an 8 quid punt, I think, and just see what happens. And just see what we get from there. But I don't know. I've tried taking shots of street lights. I can't remember who it was. Was it you, James, that suggested it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And
well, because it has this similar local light source, right? Kind of like the bendy lights that you can focus.
Yeah. So I've been trying to see if I can get a similar effect, and it's no, I can't. Is the simple answer. I'm getting some effect, but not anything like it, and the camera's instantly not wanting to create that effect, whereas my camera's wanting to create that effect. Rob was struggling to get that close up, kind of circular, so-called out of focus pattern. But
I seem to be able to video it, but I can't take a photo of it. It won't. Yeah, I need to know the settings. I need lots of practice with what settings and.
Whereas mine's happy to do it. So is that something? Is it the increased zooms happier to do it? Especially when
are you in a really, really dark night as well? Is it really, really dark for you? Because maybe the moonlight is making it. It's drawing in the moonlight. I'm not sure if that's right, but maybe I need a moonless night to do it.
Well, yeah, it was next week or so. I'll keep doing it. Do you know what I mean? And we'll see, won't we? We'll see what results we can.
I won't be doing it for a little while. It's been overcast now. I think we've been forecast rain for quite a while now. This is our rainy season now, so.
So, John,
yeah,
tell us about what you have had going on this week. Some pretty exciting stuff.
Not really, but yes.
Not really.
I had to test the friction bearing in my gyroscope, and turns out it works perfectly. So therefore, the first experiment, the 6-hour rotation of the Earth experiment, still stands as valid for the peanut.
Fantastic.
Da-da-da-da.
Yeah, we're gonna get some better video footage of it, but yeah, I was just bowled over that it actually worked, and because despite being told by the manufacturer or the owner of the company that manufactures the gyroscope that it wasn't capable of registering the 15 degrees per hour rotation of the Earth. Yeah, I was very surprised to find that it absolutely was. So yeah, that video is available.
And I guess you quickly forgave the poor chap because they obviously don't know any better.
Well, it's funny. He's
Yep.
actually writing a book on Foucault's pendulum, which he probably doesn't want to read my blog then. I don't know what other people's thoughts on Foucault's pendulum experiment are. Anyone looked
I
into it?
thought that was very mean homework.
Say again.
I thought it was an interesting challenge because you were chatting about it last night when we were on Twitter and that. I managed to cram a little bit in, with regards to the sine wave.
Yeah, well, it's the formula for dependent on your latitude.
The sine wave is?
No, it's a formula. It's the sine of your latitude times 15 degrees per hour, and that will give you the variation of rotation, or also it's claimed to show gyroscope apparent drift calculation with the same formula, but I'm starting to think it's completely bogus.
Well,
Right.
I assume when you were asking about that you were intimating the sine wave might have something to do with it. So I had a little look, and the only thing I could see that the reason that it's got sine wave in was in somebody explaining the actual formula. And the reason it's got sine in is because the way maths is about explaining what's going off, isn't it, mathematically? And there are lots of ways of doing that. And the way they do this within that formula, and hence why sine's in there, is to use vectors to calculate the movement because it's within 3D space. So you can have an X, a Y, and a Z movement. So that's the reason it's in there. And that's the only reason. There's no reason that the movement replicates a sine wave or anything that I could see. It was just simply you could do a different formula that didn't have it in, but it would be a lot bigger and more complicated because moving in 3D space is hard to express mathematically unless you use vectors. So
that's interesting.
Correct. And for all the layman people like I was, and I still am, you can look up Foucault's pendulum and Airy's, what's his name again? Professor Airy, and then you'll get a better idea of everything.
About Airy, there was an interest. I mean, I was already had my doubts about the formula a bit, but I saw it being used more and more in with regard to gyroscopes, and as far as I knew, it only really applies to the pendulum. But Aries, when he was the seventh astronomer royal, or royal, which doesn't mean a lot in our circumstances or our circles, but it was interesting that he said, well, he regarded the latitude-dependent formula for the period of the apparent precession of the pendulum as a, quote, mathematical curiosity having no application whatsoever to the. Now he used an expression, soi dissent, which is, I think it's Latin, but basically for so-called experiment. So he said it was a mathematical curiosity having no application whatsoever to the so-called experiment. So he didn't think much about it, that's for sure. And I tend to think he's right, because apart from the fact that I've proved to myself now that apparent drift is not existent. So these formulas basically are redundant because there is no apparent drift.
The 15 degrees, it just cancels itself out, something like that.
Sorry, carry on, Adam.
I was going to say that the thing about Foucault's pendulum is one of the first things you go to when you're about to prove that the Earth is a globe. When you first look into flat Earth, isn't it? It's one of the
Mm.
first things that
Yeah, to
pop
go
up, and
to.
you use that. So, I remember looking into it, and even and discussing it with friends, and it's before you even you look at some of the basic facts, and even at the South Pole, I think I remember looking at one in a stairwell. So they've got the height of one of these things swinging in a stairwell at the South Pole, and even
Yeah, that's right.
that doesn't even get close. And then you look into it down the line when it comes up again, and then you start to look at the actual mechanics of the thing, and then it becomes just farcical, doesn't it? In terms of how something could be neutral in what you're asking it to do, especially as Foucault never describes in any way any particular non-friction bearing in any. Do you know what I mean? At the top of that, which,
Yeah.
and then so and most importantly, and this was the one of the better things that I started me linking this with deception theory, and that is when you see all these machines that are set up mechanically to demonstrate Foucault's pendulum, and they set up a Foucault's pendulum that has to have a mechanism to demonstrate the principle of Foucault's pendulum,
That's
which
right.
is
And then they
little
write
switch.
lengthy articles justifying why and justifying how good and why they can rationalize putting a motor in there to drive this thing.
we'd hate for the tourists for this the one time it doesn't work and doesn't demonstrate it to be disappointed. So we stuck the clock in the fucking top.
And I think Rob Durham's video recently with his suspended gyroscope hanging from a thread, his analysis of the replica of Foucault's gyroscope set up from 1852 showed a clear um, adjustment screw right where the hanging thread would be. So, as Rob showed in his experiment, this thing will turn no matter what. If it's hung by a thread, it has a turn to it, and you can make that turn clockwise, anti-clockwise, speed up, slow down, everything. Um, and so that, again, like you say, Adam, fits into the deception model. Why would they need, restrictive screws to slow this thing down, essentially, or speed this thing up? It all screams of fraud.
Yeah, it stinks, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm. As does all science lately. I started to read a peer-reviewed paper on why the galaxy is 4.5 billion years old, and it's laughable, gents. I could barely get through the first 4 pages because everything's a theory, even the great impact. Like it's bollocks.
No, mate, it's not. It's not. It is what it is because the maths requires it to be that at the moment. If something changes, it could be older or newer. But at the moment, the maths requires it to be that old. Do you know what I mean?
I think it's isn't it
it's
a
nonsense.
sort of 500-year domino effect of telling one lie that's now turned into God knows how many thousands of lies that they just have to keep covering up.
It's true. Think about it in terms of society. You see why the world's so bad, right? We've got 5-6 generations of people that have lived bad, and now our generation's reaping the benefits of that unfruitful living. The television, the violence, the lack of care that we're paying for it because of the generations before us started to fall away from what they knew was good living. Then the TV came in, and wonderful.
But a lot of it does stem from the, when they flip the world from a flat stationary plane to a spinning, careering, hurtling ball in space, in endless vacuum of space. A lot psychologically changed in the human psyche on that front, I think.
intentionally. Do you know what I mean? That was.
But my quandary or my conundrum was that the question was, going back to the gyroscope, and this formula, which basically says, if you're on the in the North Pole, you're going to turn 360 degrees in 24 hours, exactly. But if you're in Paris, then you have to factor in the latitude of, I think it's 54 degrees or 50 degrees or whatever it is, and you take the sine of the latitude that you're at and you times it by 15 degrees per 24 hour, per hour of rotation, and that's your new rotation. So say in London it's 11 degrees or whatever, rather than 15 degrees per hour. And I just wonder, my question is where do those degrees that you're not turning, when does it add up to 360 degrees? Because as far as I'm concerned, every
No, that's
single thing on the planet does turn 360 degrees in 24 hours on a theoretical spinning ball. I
The
can't
only
think
difference,
of a single thing that doesn't.
the only difference can be, John, is how fast you're actually turning or you're moving.
But
they say we're
that's the velocity.
a thousand at the equator, and you'll say where you are, you're traveling at 600. That's the only difference. You still have to move to 360 degrees in the 24 hours, no matter where you are.
Exactly, and this is where a lot of people get confused. Say you've got, you take the wheel off your bike and you mount it to your bench and you spin it. Exactly, the guy sitting in the hub, in the middle, is going to turn 360 degrees in 24 hours. The guy on the tire is also going to turn 360 degrees in 24 hours, but the guy on the tire is going to be going a hell of a lot faster than the guy on the hub. In velocity, his velocity is going to be a lot higher. But that's the only thing that's changing.
That's what I was going to interrupt and say. That's his edge velocity.
Yeah,
is what that is. The rate of rotation, though, surely is the same, because if you take a point down, a straight line down, take, I don't know, Cairo and Munich or whatever is roughly level, or
yeah.
If you take that as the Earth rotates, the amount of circular movement is the same. However, Cairo will have traversed a larger circumference because it's on a, but so therefore it's moving faster. But the amount of degrees per second or hour is exactly the same, isn't it?
Yes, this is my point. So when they say that you have these pendulums or you have gyros with apparent drift, all the rest of it, and this can be worked out with the sine formula, Foucault sine formula, I'm calling BS on that, because like I say, I cannot think of a single object on the planet, on the alleged planet, that is revolving less or more than 360 degrees in 24 hours. So therefore everything is rotating at 15 degrees per hour. Everything. My kitchen table, my car, my house, my country, everything on their fictitious planet ball is turning 360 degrees in 24 hours.
Yeah, but they're all moving different distances in that time, in space, in time and space, aren't they? Based on where they are on the globe that's rotating.
Yeah,
but you're still moving.
The ironic thing is that the only thing that would appear not to be moving on this fictitious planet would be a gyroscope mounted at the poles or on the equator at the right configuration. They're the only things that would appear not to move. The only things I can think of that appear not to do an exact 360 24 hours a day are the pendulums. They can do whatever the hell they want, by the sounds of things.
They have engines and motors, though, John. And in terms of what you were saying earlier, it's all relative, John. Everything moves relative. It's all relative.
If anything was moving at all, that is, which we've already shown. With multiple people have already shown now that we're not moving anywhere. This place does not move; it's stationary. But the good thing is now we can actually show that with simple layman's physics experiments with the gyroscope, and we can also show that the gyroscope is perfectly capable of measuring the rate of turn that they claim the Earth is spinning at. So, as far as I'm concerned, it's checkmate on that front.
Have we got a better way to let people understand it, though? Because I still fear, and I'm still, a subject to it once in a while when you guys get really complicated on it, how the gyroscope works and how it is an absolute slam dunk.
Yeah, this is what we need to
talk to people, maybe, the newer people, if they could just understand it. I think it would go over.
Well, a gyroscope
the ultimate.
Is unique in properties on the Earth, as far as I know. A gyroscope, when it is, a gyroscope essentially is a spinning mass around an axis, which is the spin axis. So a gyroscope, when spun up, is unique in its properties that it remains rigid in space. It points at the point where it is being aimed at as you spin it up. You see, this is the problem with the gyroscope thing. It's not easy to explain, but it's one of the most simplest things that you can understand. Just by watching a couple of videos and seeing how these things perform. Basically, like a magnetic compass would point at north as you went around the ball or the plane or whatever, it would point at north. The difference with a gyroscope is that it will point at whatever it's pointing at when you fire it up, and it will remain pointing at that. So they call that rigidity in space, which is a little bit misleading because, well, you have to believe in space for a start, but it's pointing at an infinite point off in space. There you go, I say it.
Sounds more like resistance in space, because it's not subject to the imaginary stuff they say, right?
No, it's not subject to gravity. Gravity, the way they describe it, yes, if you drop a gyroscope, it's going to fall to the ground. But that is not gravity; that's density, and it's subject to that, and that's why it starts to precess and starts to wobble as it moves away from its center of density. That's very easy to show that gravity has no bearing. Why would they claim to use gyroscopes in outer space, in zero-G environments, on satellites, probes? The ISS has got several gyroscopes, so they tell us. If gravity was a factor, then you wouldn't be able to use them in zero-G, and they do all the time, so we're told.
That's why, John, I don't like rigid in space.
No, I don't.
I like stuck in the ether.
It sounds uncomfortable too if you say it again. It's not a very nice phrase.
How can you be rigid in space?
I don't know how to better describe it. I don't know, it's other than it remains pointing at an infinite target. It's locked. Yeah.
There you go. Ha!
It literally does lock itself when you fire it up. You point it at something and it locks on that. So if you fired it up, let's say you're looking at the ball Earth in front of you, and on the right hand side you fired it up. Say you're on the equator or whatever, and the rotor axis is parallel to the ground. by the time it got round to the other side of the planet, 180 degrees away or 12 hours away, the ends would have flipped. You can't describe it like that, Oliver. The only ways to do it visually, this is what I'm trying to do. This is what I'm trying to video to make it a little bit more easy for people to see it. But there's plenty of videos online that show the actions of a gyroscope. I don't know if anyone's there twiddling their thumbs.
We need to work on a better way to translate it to the masses, though, unfortunately. But we're going to work on that, and we have a guy who's actually working on your latest video to get it up soon, so we can release it and show what you've done. But we got to keep kicking it around for the layman's. The everyman.
Let me run this.
I think the point is, guys, though, we've got to put it simply for everybody to understand, but the point is, John has proved scientifically, without any doubt, as far as I can see, that and only more fundamentally, that the equipment is sensitive enough to pick up the alleged rotation, and that's what John proved from a scientific point of view. Hasn't proved the Earth doesn't rotate from a solely scientific point of view, but he certainly proved the equipment, if the Earth did rotate at that rate, would be sensitive enough to pick it up. What inference you draw from that statement of fact that the equipment is sensitive enough but doesn't demonstrate any rotation, what you draw from that is...
Well, the only thing we can go on is what they tell us, and they tell us it rotates at 15 degrees per hour. So
but you're showing no rotation.
Say again.
You're demonstrating no rotation, not rotating at 360 degrees a week or anything. It's zero.
And zero drift, no drift, no apparent drift, no nothing.
I suppose what I'm demonstrating is no rotation less than 15 degrees per hour. If we want to get absolutely technical.
Well, I think that for the show-minded folks out there, that's important. That we're not claiming we've been to the moon and back. Actually, what you're making is a statement of fact that is not arguable scientifically.
Yeah. No, I agree with you, Adam. We've got to be careful on this, because it may be rotating at 1 degree per hour, and it may be the fact that the gyroscope can't pick that up. But if that is the case, then every single thing they told us about the cosmology that we live in is wrong.
Bullshit. Yeah.
Exactly. So that's the point there. Yeah, I totally agree with you. What I've proved is that it's not rotating less than 15 degrees per hour. Oh, sorry.
Slow the clock. You could slow the clock down. Or wait till put some knackered batteries in it so it don't run fast enough.
I mean, I can change the gearing. So I've also got those gears. I put a photo up of them earlier. I've also got a smaller gear, so I could actually run it at probably a quarter of the rate of the turn of the Earth apparent, and even test that. That's a really good point. But what I was gonna say, and it's gone. Carry on.
He'll pull it back.
Oh, there we go. For anyone out there that's listening that's not, can't visualize 15 degrees per hour of turn. If they think about their hour hand on their watch or their clock, their analog watch or clock, if you think how fast that turns and halve that rate, then that is what I tested the gyroscope rotation rate at, just to put it into a bit of perspective.
Beautiful. Thank you. More good stuff to come and follow, I'm sure.
Yeah, we're getting there. Yeah, I'm just making notes now because that was a really good point about that Adam made. 15 degrees per hour.
If you can change gearing, mate, then that's fantastic because you can actually
Oh yeah, like RC
demonstrate.
cars. Yeah.
You can
Good idea.
you can calibrate the gyroscope in terms of prove
Yep.
that the rotation and the lack of movement is solely due to what's going off underneath. If you can demonstrate a straight line curve between a straight line in the correlation between the rotation and the degrees in terms of time.
Sure.
Because if you change the gearing
Mm-hmm.
so that it's moving at half the speed, you should see half the degrees. And if you show that, then that's pretty clear evidence that actually even less than 15 degrees per hour, it's accurate.
Well, I got two cogs the same size, which is what I'm using. Actually, talk amongst yourselves. I'll put up some photos.
Love that word, cogs. It's just a great word. How are you doing, Rob? Quiet today. We're just listening.
It's pouring down rain where I am, so yeah, I can hardly hear you as I'm out in the shed.
You sound like you're on the ISS.
He's
He's further away.
Does it sound like I'm in NASA, the headquarters?
Yep. That's excellent. No, there's a lot to it, and there's also a lot of truth in what we're doing. So it's been very exciting working with you guys so far. There's so much more ahead this year. I think, well, John touched on it a couple weeks ago. We've now had 2 or 3 years into it, and this isn't going away. So we're starting to get, the real bigwigs and heavyweights involved, and they're starting to test it and go through it themselves. Pilots, real pilots, military men, engineers, chemists, mathematicians, all kinds of people that wouldn't touch it with a 10-foot pole in the past because of guilt shaming or tin hat, point of views that people get. So no.
Can you?
Hey,
I
I'd just like to say just quickly too, we've got a few people watching. So if any of the people watching got a question, just put it on the chat and try and get to it.
Cool. Can anyone see the picture I've put up or not?
Yep, the green gears.
Right, you can see it, yeah? Cool.
Yeah.
Is that coming across on the live feed?
Sorry guys, I can hardly hear you.
Doesn't seem to be.
We'll always put it up in the editing after, but we'll figure out how to get it up live for you next time, John.
Is there any comments?
No,
Anyone on comment can say?
Any questions, Rob? Can you read the chat?
Yeah, I'm reading it.
I just also wanted to say back for the people that when John and Adam were talking Foucault's pendulum, is to look at that airy experiment because it's quite interesting as well, and it deals with the topic that always seems to pop up with the flat Earth, and that is the waters, right? So I just thought I'd add that if people are wondering about the pendulum and the experiments, make sure to look at airy as well.
Yeah,
there's plenty of videos.
Sorry, carry on.
I was going to say there's plenty of stuff out there to look at on YouTube, and yeah, plenty.
Right, I've no idea if live feed is seeing any of these pictures or anything like this, but I'm putting up pictures of the latest thing with the gears, and you can see, or maybe not, see in the background there's a smaller gear, which is about, I'd say it's about a third of the size of the big gears. So I reckon I could ratchet down the spin of that gyroscope platform by a third maybe, and make it 5 degrees per hour of spin. Now that would be something impressive if the gyroscope was still registering that sort of spin. Don't you reckon?
Well,
I do.
As long as we know it's a reduction and we can calculate what that reduction is, if it picks it up, mate, then
we do it on the teeth, don't you? On the amount of teeth.
I'm sure there's a YouTube video that we can watch and it will take half an hour to work it out and calculate it. Do you know what I mean? There must be a gearing ratio for
There is. Go to the RC sites, have it. This makes sense to me actually, because I was a big RC guy a couple of years ago, so I know about the gears and gearing down and the ratios, and it's kind of a neat way. I'll have to look at it and maybe pull out some of my stuff. If I had a gyroscope, I could do my own with the gears. I have a lot of spare parts.
Yeah, I was right into radio control cars and all the rest of it as well, so this is where I cut my teeth on all of that. I don't know what's happened to the live stream here. I don't know if it's working or not. It's not working from my end, but it might be out there. Anyone got an eye on the chat room? Anyone tell us if it's working?
Yeah, I am. Someone just commented that they can only see half the screen.
Only see
I don't know what's going on there.
Half a screen. Yeah, I think that's the problem. Let me just try something here.
Bear with us, folks. Bear with us.
I'm back. Can you hear me? Oh, cool. Got kicked out there, guy.
I can hear you.
So while you're doing that, Rob, I was going to say that was my only concern, that whatever the quality of clock you got, whether it was a tick, and therefore it was a single motion that the gyroscope could respond to with the Earth, which isn't replicating the Earth, and would be bigger as well on that small scale. But if you've got smooth turning gearing on it, then there's no argument in terms of the mechanism that's replicating the rotation, as long as it's smooth. That makes sense.
Say that again, Adam.
So one of the scientifically, it's always good to look at an experiment and think of critical thought. What could be an error in the experiment that replicates what you think demonstrates something, but actually doesn't because of an error? So one of the things I was thinking was that the clock mechanism that you've got is a ticker, as in,
it is.
Yeah,
it's
with
not
this,
sort of quartz or whatever they say. It's a tick.
A smooth motion. Well, I've got one in my kitchen clock that's smooth motion, so it doesn't. So the second hand and all the hands that follow work off a gearing system. So but it's not tick, tick, tick. So the second hand runs smooth.
Right.
Yeah, you can't see it. No, I've not took the back off. It's on the kitchen wall. But you know what I mean? But you can see there's a clear difference in it. There's a tenner more. Wife said it was worth it. I don't disagree.
It's
proved it's worth now.
It's called a mechanism. It's called a quartz mechanism or something, isn't it? You know, this is why people pay for Rolexes, because they don't tick, 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 tick. They tick, 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 tick. You know, but they are ticking, but they're ticking 10 times faster than a normal tick.
Yeah, so there's no click. Do you know what I mean? It wasn't. What I'm meaning is your clock wasn't clicking once every minute. Was the point I was getting at.
See if I can bring up the video. That'd be interesting, or at least fast forwarded version of the video.
So the movement from minute 2 to minute 3 occurred over a minute. It didn't occur at 2 minutes 59 to 2 minutes to 3. Did you get me? It wasn't just the one click of a cog. The actual motion that was applied to the hand that was turning it was applied through a gearing mechanism that applied that force more slowly.
Right. I'm with you.
Do you get me? That's again not my field, but it's based on my kitchen clock. Like I say, that's got this mechanism there. The second hand doesn't tick like the second hand does on your watch. It's a much smoother gearing motion that it sweeps around the clock every minute rather than ticks around.
Got you. Yeah.
So I was thinking about that now. That my kitchen clock is going round once every minute, and it looks smooth. Yeah, through a bit of gearing that is no bigger than a AA battery. Do you know what I mean? So what you've got there should negate if it's set through lots of gearing, and the clock mechanism itself's got some gearing, unless it is ticking once every. And that was the only thing that I think could impede the results.
It ticks once every second.
Right. So
it's like a normal clock, but it's ticking once every second, and the hour hand is moving at half the speed of a normal hour hand.
Yeah. And that's what it's connected to. And so the gearing, so the tick that we see is on the second hand, as we'd see. And then that smooth motion, we never see a tick on the hour hand ever, do we? And your hour hand's going half the speed.
Yeah, you can. I mean, if you look close enough at a kitchen clock or something, or a reasonable sized clock, you can see the hour hand move every second. But it's minute, and it would be even half the speed again on this particular mechanism that I'm using. Yeah. But you know
what I'm doing? I'm doing a rob. I'm doing a rob.
Argue things like that.
Yeah, that's the only thing that I could think that is argumentable in the mechanism or the method that's been demonstrated. And if you're saying that it's half the speed of a normal clock, which it is, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Then that negates it again even further, isn't it? In terms of,
yeah, it makes it even.
It's not like a knock. It's not like when you knock the gyroscope and it comes back. Do you know what I mean?
No.
It's there, and there's a very, very, very imperceptible change every second.
I mean, essentially, though, if you took it down to the micro level, then you would register. It would register a knock. It would be the
you
same
know what, John? Then, as a retort, all I would say is then your gyroscope should also notice that we're going 66,000 miles in this direction and whatever in this direction, and this around the greater tractor. So it should also notice that as well, which should be even more. So the fecker should be spinning, shouldn't it? At a stupid rate.
No gyroscope spun up should ever be staying still on this heliocentric model. No gyroscope should ever appear still, as both me and Rob and many others have shown it to do. It would be almost impossible for us to rig it to the point where it stays still and still be able to show manually, us moving it and it working. There's just no way a gyroscope can stay still on the planet or appear. Like I say, the only two places are the North Pole and the equator, both with the same setup but opposite setups. I'll try and explain this in a video, but one, at the equator it would be a horizontal spin axis, and at the pole it would be a horizontal spin axis, and at the equator it would be a but the other way around. I need to explain it in a video, because people get rotor axis and
I was going to say
spin
that's the
axis.
gimbal, isn't it? Not the
Exactly. Yeah. The spin axis is the spin of the axle through the rotor, so it's perpendicular to the rotor. So it would work. A vertical spin axis at the North Pole, the South Pole, or whatever, and a horizontal spin axis at the equator. But in reality, they're all the same spin axis, because you're measuring the spin axis relative to the ground below you. It sounds complicated, when I say it, but it's actually very simple. I can't get this working at all. I can't get this running. Can someone else share? Does anyone else have the ability to share screen?
Not from the phone, sorry.
Yeah, me neither, John.
No, okay. I'll stop that. Just trying to run the video in the background so people know what the hell we're talking about. But
So I think I've just thought of something else. It was a random thought though, as a defence, but theoretically, if we are rotating, which is what you're talking about measuring, then there should also be measurable effects of our rotation around the sun and the sun's rotation around the galactic center. And because we are moving away from the point in space, yeah, and as long as there's a change in orientation along that plane that the gyro is working, that should also be detected. And I know the universe is impossibly flat, but unless we were traveling, it was lined up the same.
Yeah, you've seen that cartoon where the sun is hurtling through space and all the planets are revolving around it.
That's what I'm saying. So that motion should also be perceptible within, and those speeds are much bigger. And if you're moving at even small angles off of that plane, at the sort of speeds when you're talking 66,000 miles an hour and 200 whatever, all those silly numbers, yeah, then the movement away from that plane, even at the small angle, would be perceptible on the gyro. But you don't even see an attempt at a defense or an explanation of that. And I'm sure astrophysicists, surely that's something they could use to detect our motion in the galaxy, as we have a super gyro instead of a collider doing, don't know, Mandela effects or whatever. I don't know, nonsense. No, I'm not going there. That's nonsense. No. But do you know what I mean? But instead of wasting money on that, surely a super gyro would be able to detect these things if they're rigid in. And like I say, it's not space to me. To me, it's stuck in the ether, is what it is. It stays in that ether, and whatever it's doing at those speeds, I think the ether keeps it rigid there. I don't have any more of a clue than that. But do you know what I mean? But that's the way I'd describe it, rather than rigid in space, because space means you can't be rigid because there's nothing there to keep you rigid, because it's space.
Is anyone seeing that video now? Is that managing to run? Okay,
yeah.
Give me
that's full screen.
20 seconds. Just got to grab something. I'll just let that run in the background then. If people can see it, that's good, because I can't see you guys anymore. So that was the basic setup. Sat on top of a 24-hour clock mechanism. Can you all see that?
Yeah, it's all good. No sound, which is cool. Because it was
all good.
Sound off. You probably don't.
No, that's what I mean. There is no sound, which is good. because I remember they're thinking, "Oh, great." That was the only thing. I still don't know what you said on that video. I watched the video, but I don't know what you said because it was was all I heard.
Let me fast forward it. Well, look, this starts off at 7 o'clock, basically.
I heard your wife come in a couple of times or something, but
that was on the other one. No one comes in this place, so that's cool.
On a separate bus. I know we're live, but I've rebuilt the man cave today. I've doubled its space. I've removed the little mini mezzanine floor that I had for my children when they were little, and turned it into 2 extra wide experimenting shelves, which I've yet to find experiments for. But
build it and they will come.
I think I gave you some inspiration earlier, I believe.
Yes, bro. Yeah.
Okay, so the idea was that the under here there's there's 3 legs that is the bottom of the gimbal, and on top with this whole setup here is the gyroscope itself, and the gyroscope is sat on top of a clock mechanism that rotates 360 degrees in 24 hours. So basically what I was looking for was the legs of the gyroscope gimbal to move at 15 degrees per hour, and the gyroscope itself to remain exactly where we pointed it, which is roughly 5 degrees, for the entire time. So there it is at what's that, 7:15. It's been going quarter of an hour.
John,
you can already see the leg moving a little bit. Yep, Adam.
Can I interject a geek point there?
Mm-hmm.
You set it up at 5 degrees. Now my OCD would want that at 0.
I didn't think it was going to work, mate.
Is that why? It was just, I didn't know whether it was just once it's set up, they're a bugger to move and you're happy to keep them once you've got them there, or...
No, there's 2 problems. I can move it as much as I want. That's no problem. I can set it up as well as I want. But what the camera shows and what I'm seeing with my eye is different. So, do you see what I mean? So I've got to line it up. Looking at the camera screen, right, and then you look back at it, and it doesn't look as though it's lined up at all.
I use the same methodology when patients have argued about me pouring their methadone.
Yeah, you got to make
it at a high level. Yeah, and you're never going to get the camera. So that.
But there we go. We've got half an hour there, which is should be moving 7.5 degrees. So then we'll move it on. We'll go from 7:30 to what's that? 10 to 8. Right, you can see quite a big difference there between the legs of the gimbal and the actual gyroscope, where the original is pointing at 5. So you can see the leg has moved probably now nearly 15 degrees. It's coming up for an hour, so that would be about right. So if we wang it on a bit further, so that's 10 to 8 there, and I had to move the watch out the way because I think the legs were going to hit it. So that's 20 to 9, I think, maybe, and that's now pointing towards the 25 degree, 30 degree mark, whereas the gyroscope remains pointing at 5 degrees, which is exactly what I was hoping for. And then we'll shift that on again, 8:45. Yeah, move around a bit more. Didn't you see at the end, Rob, where I knocked it on the floor? That was your pyrotechnics die-hard moment.
Oh yeah. I was riveted.
I thought you might be.
I particularly like the way you turned it into a way of demonstrating the bearings underneath, which I thought was a smooth intersection as you smacked at the moment. Yeah, but you can see the way it turns nicely on the bottom.
There. As though I meant to do it and spin it around and around. So basically, there you can see, that's a sort of freeze frame of, we're looking at, this is 2 hours on, so it started at 7:05. It's now 9:05. So I'd expect 30 degrees of travel, and that's exactly what we're seeing in the gimbal legs, and we're seeing no degrees of travel in the gimbal in the gyro whatsoever. So it's remained rigid in space, and it's proved itself to be capable of registering at least 15 degrees per hour. So there we go.
So what was
Locked
the
in.
main comment against what you'd done there? Like you said that there were a few people bagging you out straight away. So what was the main problem that they were coming up with for you?
Well, there's only one, basically, that they believe that this wire, the entire experiment is invalid because it's attached to a wire. Basically, they think this wire is rigid, and it's holding the gyroscope in place. I don't know if I can fast forward to where I knock it arse over tit and show you. But that that is literally only coming from one person now. Before that, there were claims. There were several claims that it was a gyro. It was the friction coefficient of the gyro bearing. There you go. Look, I'm playing with the wire now. Okay, doesn't look as though I'm not doing much of a job there, but I mean, I can assure you, it's not. I'm just showing you there that it's still.
How many views have you had on that now, John?
How many what?
Views.
I just had a look a minute ago. It was 260 or something.
Yeah, so you've had plenty of opportunity for people to drag you out. I'm surprised that was your wife the one that was moving everything around there, because they're pretty feminine hands. I can see there.
Yeah, right.
They're your hands.
They're crafty hands. I can imagine you've got massive Homer Simpson sausage fingers, haven't you?
I'm just thinking, right, John. I've been the worst shill for you tonight. If that's the only criticism you've had, I've just applied more scientific criticism tonight than the pile of crap you've been defending all week.
No, that's good.
And even no, but do you know what I mean? If that is genuinely it, then
I can think of better things. I can imagine within a few weeks or so, people are going to say this has been negated because it was actually going the opposite direction to the Earth's spin, and therefore it showed no turn, which you do actually have to take into account, because I'm trying to experiment on the spin of the Earth. I'm showing no spin of the Earth, but to someone who thinks that the Earth is spinning, then this could literally be the anti. I've perfectly caught the anti-spin of the Earth or something.
Don't humour them. Just send them a link to the first video where there's no fucking turntable underneath it, and ask them to work it out themselves. And until they do, don't humour them.
Well, I mean, the main response there was,
they just want to eat.
It's clearly the friction in the bearing. I mean, it's a bag of shit. It's a cheap toy. It's crap. You're facing the wrong direction. It's this, that, and the other. I mean, I've heard it all. All the words. I haven't seen any evidence from them, so I've done it myself, and shown them that the bearing is perfectly up to the job. But I'm gonna really run it home and gear that thing down so it's turning something like 5 degrees per hour, and see if it registers that too now. And I'm also going to cut the wire and attach batteries to the motor, so it's running independent without any wires, but it's still going to be running.
Can't you mount it so that it's central, or Mind you, batteries is as good, isn't it? It stops an argument.
Well, the only reason I ran it off, well, I mean, that wire essentially leads to a battery compartment with 4 1.5 volt batteries in it, but I rigged it up to a phone charger that puts out the same 6 volts or whatever, because I wanted to run it for the initial 6-hour experiment, which you can't do on 4 AA batteries. It runs itself out in about an hour. So that's the only reason I rigged it up so that it was running off the mains. But for this experiment, I only need to run it about an hour to show 15 degrees of turn. So
if there is any torque from the wire pulling, because wires pull, stuff falls off, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But if there was any torque from that, then you would see it applied on the gyro, wouldn't you? Because the torque tends to apply and then the gyro will correct.
Well, look at it.
Do you know what I mean?
I'm turning
it's
it.
Static.
The wire is moving as I'm turning it. I mean, it's you know, it's not some solid slab of titanium or whatever. Now watch it as it falls. You know, this if that was a solid wire. Yeah, we need pyrotechnics there and dramatic music and blood. We need lots of blood.
Bum, 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 bum.
But yeah, great. And my segue. I meant to do that.
Well, that was beautiful. That's what I'm saying, Matt. I thought, and there he goes. Just as like one of these free energy videos. I'm just showing you. Look, there's no mechanism under here. There's no Debbie McGee under the desk. It's
well, none of it's stuck. None of it's stuck.
The magician plans his show. Nothing in here, nothing there.
Someone did note at some point here that I turn it and it turns with the bottom, but I mean, to be fair, I've just dropped this thing. So I don't know what, you know, I had it perfectly balanced before.
Is the motor still running at this point?
Yeah. Well, let me
so the whole thing's still trying to stay where it was initially.
Yeah, it's still
so
running,
the forces it's then applying down that shaft as it tries to correct as you've smashed it around is like I said, I'd turn the sound off, John, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, I didn't even watch it, mate. I don't know. I can't. You know, have you watched it? I only watched it in fast motion.
I'm like, yeah. That's hence the ability to critique. And genuinely, I've watched it and I've tried to critique it scientifically, and I think I've done a better job than most of the shows.
I think you have.
I say by the sounds of things, yeah.
Well,
and that's the only.
Is that because you're king of the shills, Adam, or what?
You had a globe out in your garage, mister, right? That was my big thought. Am I joining Rob? Am I going to become a glober, a closet glober for a couple of days when I do some? Do you know what I mean? But that was my only criticism I could see of it, mate.
John.
Yeah,
John, we've had a request from one of our listeners. Can you turn it up a little bit, brother? If you can, maybe on your end, you're coming through a little quiet, I guess.
What the microphone?
I think it might be just you because I'm hearing everyone else loud and clear.
Are you hearing me all right?
Yeah, I am.
Yeah, same, man.
Oh my God!
You're talking about the video. They don't want to hear the
You hear that? You got us there, Kaz. Huh? He was fibbing. It was a joke, guys. You got us, Kaz. You got your 15 seconds.
Oh, Karen. See in the chat, is she? I can't see anything here because I'm presenting all sorts of stuff. But yeah, anyway, that was essentially what the experiment was, which validates the first experiment, so I'm more than happy with that. And anyone can do it too, so you know, this isn't limited to me. I mean, that is an expensive gyroscope, and it took all my Christmas money last year to get it, and a lot of back hand twisting. But anyone can get this. Rob Durham's got one, and Bob's got one now, and all sorts of experiments are being done with it. So there you go. There's the challenge laid down. Prove it wrong.
No, very good, John. Very good.
Cheers, bud. We're still waiting for
great stuff, man. Great stuff.
a long exposure star shot from Australia, Rob. What's happening with that?
I need to work out how to use my camera first.
I knew you were going to say that.
Ever since I bought it, it's virtually rained here every day since I bought the camera, and so I haven't had a good clear night since I bought the camera. And before that was every night. I could have used it any night, but yeah.
Typical.
You spoiled us. You got us used to the great stuff because in your first week you had Vanishing Island, so we were all so hyped up. By the way, if anybody hasn't seen it, go to ironrawmedia.com and check out the floating islands Rob in Australia has found.
Yeah, great stuff.
I can't wait to see the differences in the cameras because Adam's also taking the star pick, so it's going to be nice when you get it up and running, Rob. Be sure to have lots of content.
We're building up a nice cache of kit here, aren't we?
I'll take the camera wherever I go. So if I see anything out there that it's quite easy just to pull up. Well, that video that I did, that was dead set. I was driving in the truck, pulled over, and filmed that. Set up the tripod and obviously filmed it in a minute, and then drove off. So that's why the audio was a bit dodgy, and audio as in what I said. Because it was wrong.
You get around though with your work, and it's awesome. It's great that you bring that thing with you everywhere. I can't wait till you go to that place. Where is it? 800 clicks away. You got to go there, dude.
Yeah, you're dreaming, I think. No, we were talking earlier, John, a couple of days ago about Cloncurry is one of the flattest places on earth.
Yeah.
Have you seen that video? Yeah, and so that's west of me, but that's a long way away. Be good. I need a partner in crime, so I'm going to do experiments like that. I got nobody here. I'm it.
Yeah, you and me both.
Hey, I will gladly put out feelers, and we'll try and get you a partner in crime. That'd be a great thing to film.
We'll see.
So where did Walt go and Josh? Where is everyone?
Well, I think that today we should send a big happy birthday shout out to Walt. It's his birthday.
Big 5-0, isn't it?
Happy birthday, yeah, the big 5-0.
No, 6-0.
75, I thought it was. Yeah, no, 75.
We look 75.
I was assured last night was 50, so I think he's being baited by Rob.
Yeah, we got to give him a fair shake. It's a big 5-0, and he actually made it to the 5-0, so good for him.
Good man.
I think last night he was trying to act like Axl Rose too, wasn't he? Going out somewhere.
Dude, what are y'all saying? Dude, he was killing it. You guys have no
Hopefully he
appreciation.
wasn't acting too much like Axl. Just the singing part of it, I hope he was sticking to.
Oh, you don't like Axl Rose? Typical Aussie.
Well, I think what Axl gets up to behind closed doors is a bit wild, I think.
I wouldn't know, mate. You been there?
What exactly do you get up to behind closed doors there in Australia?
Sleeping. Yeah. Watching TV. What about you?
I don't know. That sounds like code, my friend. I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah.
So we got anyone watching the live stream at the moment, or what? Any questions coming in?
Have you not even had a shell attack, John?
When? Where?
On the live feed, is there not even a
No, we've got 4 people watching at the moment.
Mute.
We've got a few in the chat room. It's Karen. I can't keep up with the chat room as well.
Yeah, that was that fellow who said hello to you, John. Was Kaz?
Yeah, it's a female, I think.
So, any questions, Karen? Any questions for John, our star for the moment?
Yeah.
So I've got a topic for anyone.
Other topics? Did you say?
Yeah.
Shoot.
Right, so all this flat earth stuff is taking us away from all the important things that are happening in the Matrix. What is flat earth doing to help these causes? What are we actually achieving here? Why aren't we talking about false flags and Pizzagates and crazy royals murdering people and all that sort of thing? How the hell is flat earth achieving anything? Anyone?
Personal experience?
More interesting.
Go ahead.
That's why I like it.
It's more interesting.
Well, yeah, it is, and it's more deeper. It's deeper.
In what way?
Well, we know so little about it. I mean, we know that it's not moving like they say. We're trying to come up with concrete ideas and testable results, which there are many, but it's such a rush. Like, it's such a, it's absolute truth. So you're going to dedicate your time to it. At least I am. Because personally, I've looked at for 10 years at the other stuff, at the false flags and the 9/11 and, all those governmental MSM tactics that are just so dry and stale. And, we want to figure this one out. We want to do this one. For me,
and
that's the draw for me,
get
man.
you anywhere? The 9/11 investigations and all that sort of thing. I mean, it's got us along the path, hasn't it? It's got us further along in understanding what's going on. But sorry, Karen.
I was gonna say, here's the thing. Those side things and those like Mandela, false flags, government conspiracies, economic systems, the banking cartels, the the elite families, all of those things and all of that knowledge is available to help you on the road to get to the realization of flat Earth.
Yeah,
it's a big earth-shattering thing. And it is like so hard to get through to people. So, but those side conspiracies, at least one of them, I mean, look at Truth Seeker. You need one to get your mind to a place where you can start to smash out those walls, because you have to do it yourself mentally, and you have to do it with a big, heavy hammer. And unless you get a trigger point, you're not going to see it. So then you're wasting your time. But
no,
anyways, that's my thoughts.
No, I think you're spot on, James. Carry on. I think.
One of you been following the Fort Lauderdale airport shooting?
Say again, Rob?
The Fort Lauderdale airport shooting. Have you been following that false flag or hoax?
No.
That's another bad one. They've made that one. They've made that one badly again. They've used the same crisis actor a couple of times. They've got
Can you give us
footage
a rundown? What was it about? What happened?
Well, just a lone gunman running through the airport, shot and killed 5 and injured a few. And they've had, you got the footage of the tarmac, people running away. But before they start running away, you can clearly see people are directing them to run this way, directing them to run that way, and stopping them while they're running away, stopping them, getting them to come back, getting them to hide.
And they're Fort
they have the good ones, and they have the good ones, and they have their bad ones. Like some they do well, but some they really, really balls it up.
Isn't that an army base, Rob?
I think there might be one there, but I think that's the airport in Hollywood, I think. Is that right,
Yeah,
James?
that's right. That's just the airport in Fort Lauderdale. I've flown there
Okay.
many times myself, and it was just it's the volume. And I just want to say on it, there was a lot of detractors. I mean, you start to see a little bit of division in the community. But I'll say this to people that know is there's no way that they could have mistakenly interviewed that girl twice, and she just happened to wear a vest at the beginning and they came back later in the afternoon, because just the sheer amount of people there's no way they would have interviewed her twice. There's so many other people. It just wouldn't have happened. So did you catch that, Rob?
Yeah, I did. And did you see the film crew? There was like 3 film crews in the airport watching people run away. Now, if it was a real event, wouldn't the cameraman be running away as well? And there just happened to be 3 guys in the airport with proper cameras watching them run away.
Is that a movie? Are they shooting a movie?
No. They look like news crews to me. But that sort of, yeah, it's just one after the other.
Yeah, and the setup reminded me of the one we had where the ambassador was shot. Remember that one where that was
that one.
Well, this one's bad too. I mean, it's really bad. It's bad.
I just can't be bothered watching it anymore. It's just a pantomime, really, isn't it? Designed to bring you fear and hatred and socially engineer you, and you know, it's.
Unfortunately, John, 99.9% of people would think that was real.
I know.
Yeah.
That's the problem.
Yeah.
We're a tiny percentage that
keeps it
knows
fresh too, John.
They do. Yeah, it's just one after the other, and if they do a lot, then you can't even keep up with what's going on.
No, the only solution is
to
turn it off.
We ran into that last year, Rob. You're right. We couldn't keep up at one time. Remember, they were coming with the truck, and then the gun attacks, and then the other truck attack. Like, it was very hard to analyze them properly. Sorry, go ahead, John.
No. I finished. I have nothing to say. I don't watch these things anymore. You know, I just see, you know, international disasters or whatever, and I just turn off. Can't bother with it. But like you say, it's the 99% of the rest of the world that do. You know, you go out, walk your dog, and you bump into someone, and they're like, "What do you think of this? What do you think of that?" And you're just like, "What?"
You know, I can't help myself. I will tell them it's bullshit. I said, my line is, don't always believe what you see on TV.
Exactly, and that's why I do it too, to stay relevant.
I mean, you don't have to go right into it, but you just plant the seed.
Yeah.
Just plant the seed. I was getting my truck serviced, and I was in their little waiting area with the TV, and the secretary was there, and I can't remember what story was on, and I was pointing out a couple of things that just weren't.
Who did we lose there then?
All the mobiles.
There we go.
Yep.
Getting too deep there, was I?
Yep. I think you shot yourself in the foot there, mate. Talking current affairs, can't be doing that.
Yeah.
No.
So, I'm sitting there in the waiting room, and just pointing out a couple of things that weren't quite right, and she was agreeing with me, she's going, yeah, that's not right. Why would that be like that? I said, yeah, that's right. You know, so just plant the seed, you know, with people.
And then
more than likely, she went away and believed everything.
It's called the white coat.
That's how it is.
Your left, mate.
Maybe.
Dangerous to talk to people these days. Face to face, anyway.
Yeah.
What do you think, Adam?
Is that you there, Adam?
Nope. Did you guys see the latest space fraud hoax? They had a rocket launch that deployed 15 micro satellites to give the internet to the people of Africa who so desperately need internet.
Well, it didn't blow up.
No, it was a perfect landing. It landed right on the bullseye, man. Like literally, like these kids in Africa are gonna have 4 gig Wi-Fi ready to go.
Lucky them.
Imagine what they can do.
Give us all your
Do
cash.
they get food as well, or just internet?
Now, just internet. Sorry. We have profits to meet, shareholders to hit, and you know what I mean.
I mean, I don't know about you, but when I was in Africa in 93, they all had mobiles back then, right? Pretty sure.
Yeah, they have our that's where a lot of our throwaways go to. They had a lot of the Nokias from the 80s and 90s, you know.
Wow,
Definitely.
I'll have to check my photos again because I seem to remember them just as up to date as we were. Just as obsessed
It
with
wouldn't
getting the
surprise me.
newest phones. And 93, that can't be right, can it?
The point is, it's a crock of shit. The latest launch, like to me, I just see a remote controlled rocket that they built that has a big fire tail that they can get pretty high up, and then they can remote control it and land back down, and everybody thinks they've been to space. So it just looks so phony. Looks like one of those rockets you used to get as a kid that you can that comes up and then comes down. But now they have a remote control rocket that they can blow a little fire out the bottom and bring it back.
It's probably just CGI, mate.
Yeah, no, don't you think they would have a little model for the people that actually come to the field to see it like go up so they can't see it, and then they probably just like, I don't know. You could be right. It's probably all CGI. You're right.
I think anyone invited to the launch is, probably munching on pizza.
I see.
No.
That's unfortunate.
I'm being flippant.
All right, guys, I'm going to call it quits anyway.
Yeah, I think that's probably a show, isn't it?
I think so.
Yeah.
Cheers for that.
That was good.
It's been brilliant.
That's it's
It's
a goodie. It's a good.
Thanks
Yeah,
for
well,
the
I got kicked out. I was bouncing in and out. Kept trying to. I would like to add something, if that's all right. You
Please.
Raised of flat Earth and why you got into it, or what's it for, or why are you bothering, or
what's it done?
The hell are we doing here? What the hell are you doing here? So, from my point of view, you guys are just, from what I've gathered, just been talking about conspiracy A, B, C, and D, and I think that's how a lot of us get to flat Earth, one way or the other. And we chat with our friends trying to explain 9/11, and that's believable, and somebody believes this, and don't believe this, don't believe that, don't believe that. And within a short amount of time, all of them have gone, and they're no longer measurable or seeable or provable or rememberable. But the reason I've stuck with flat Earth is because it is provable, measurable, and unavoidable. And it's the one thing that will break the paradigm that they can't use, time against us to ignore it and to forget it, because it's constantly there. And you can see the level of control because people don't look out the window of a plane or whatever, and people search for the curve. I remember doing it myself, looking, imagining that curve when I'm on a plane. No, I definitely can see it. I can definitely see it. So to me, it's the one thing that is solid and will remain, that provides you to wake people up.
I totally agree, Adam.
Well said, man.
Yeah, totally. It's all I'm after now is empirical evidence, stuff that I can see, touch, feel, recreate, do myself, rather than trusting, believing, or having faith in someone else telling me how it is. I'm not interested in that anymore, because we've already found out that just about everything we've ever been told has been a complete crock of lies.
Croc.
And it's just not acceptable anymore to trust, believe, or have faith in something on this scale. It's something that should be scientifically measurable, testable, repeatable, observable by anyone. If Foucault's gyroscope was a thing, then they would have one in every school in the country. They'd have it in every museum and every library. They'd have massive ones on display outside in city centres and everything. If this thing actually worked, then it would be everywhere. But it is sold to
You
us
know what, John,
as
as
an
well?
executive toy. Carry on.
Yeah. All what you've done is, and one point is that, and what I would say you've took criticism as, you've made something that's repeatable by other people instead of moaning and claiming it's fake.
Yep.
Yours is all right. You can't necessarily do it with pocket money, but it's repeatable within the mainstream of anybody who disputes it can go and test it. And I know that's been hijacked from you. Yeah, but you can go and test it yourself.
£200.
That's what I'm saying. You can do it yourself.
Your camera costs more than that.
It did indeed. It did in just a little bit. Yeah.
I just wanted to add to what you said, Adam, which is brilliant, by the way, and I stand with you on those thoughts. But I think you've got to also look at what happens when people get to this sort of level of consciousness. In the 60s, I've heard that there was a big flat Earth movement. And then the next thing you know, that we got a picture of a round ball from space. And I know that 500 years earlier, you ended up getting burned at the stake if you didn't go along with the heliocentric model. And it just makes me nervous because I'm awaiting, just as we are growing and ready to pull the curtain back. I fear, and maybe I'm wrong, but that a major event's going to happen to shift that all away and take it all away and guide us into that new era, that new order.
Maybe then that's what we should all thank Mr. Sweary G there for actually delivering something that for the cost of a Christmas present can prove your point. To all the people and family that think you're a complete and utter nutter who's doing the reading, you can do the reading on Christmas Day next year with a gyroscope. And as you wait for the turkey to cook, you can prove there's no rotation.
Wait till I get my own gyroscope manufacturing company, right?
We hope to have Iron Realm gyroscopes under every tree by 2020.
What annoys me, though, is that I've spoken to the owner of that company that manufactures the gyroscope, and he refuses to have faith enough to say that it would measure 15 degrees per hour. He point blank says, no, it won't. But you can buy another one off me that will, if it costs prohibiting, all the rest of it. All they had to do was test it.
How much for the one he wants to sell you, John?
Yeah, exactly. I don't know. I'm not buying. I've decided to test his own. I've got more faith in his own product than he has, and it proves right.
What's it like, John? Can I ask? I want to translate it emotionally. Here's what I'm saying is like, whoa. Hi and happy birthday, buddy.
Too much noise where I'm at. I was trying to get on and talk to you guys, but it's loud here.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday, Walt.
Happy birthday to you.
Birthday to you. All right. So, John, what's it like when you're talking to them? Like, is it the same as when somebody's lying and they won't look you in the face completely? Like when you're telling him to look at the gyroscope, is it that uncomfortable? Is that the same feeling where they won't look you in the eye or something? What's it like?
I've got a string of emails back and forth from him. No, I think it's mainly what I come across every day is cognitive dissonance. It's spinning. It's a ball. We all know that. So it can't be proved not to be spinning or a ball. There's just no way. It cannot be. It's a wall of knowledge that isn't going to be scaled because it's not possible. Full stop. So I don't think they're lying. I don't think he's ever even considered flat Earth until he came across people like us. But he was perfectly genial to start with, anyway. It's interesting, since I spoke to him he put a tweet out saying apparently some people think, my gyroscope proves flat Earth or something, ha ha ha. And so I started chatting with him for a while, and he hasn't been on Twitter since. So it's been a year now. So, well, nearly a year.
Another one bites the dust.
It's a shame. I wish I could get shares in the company, because I initially emailed him to ask him whether his sales in gyroscopes had gone up recently and whether he knew why. And he said, yeah, they have gone up recently, and he does know why. And yeah, unfortunately, he's got no faith in his own product.
They will. I have faith. They all will. The walls are being broken. The gears are starting to turn. The wheels have been rolling. We're starting to pick up momentum.
Well,
all
the beauty
full
about
ahead.
the gyroscope is that you don't even need to own one to actually rationally think this through as a thought exercise. You just have to understand how a gyroscope works. And once you do understand how a gyroscope works and would perform on different surfaces and different turning surfaces and stationary surfaces and that sort of thing, it becomes mind-slappingly obvious that no gyroscope would be of any use on a spinning ball of a planet. There is just no way it could be of any use navigationally, directionally, attitudinally, you name it, on any axis. That thing would never ever stay still.
The problem there, John, is all the people that I've spoken to about gyros say gravity holds it in position.
So how do they use it on the ISS in zero G?
That's right.
Or in probes, or in
That's right.
satellites.
You can't talk to them properly. They just gravity pulls it down.
Yeah.
It has to. They say it has to pull it down. It has to keep it there.
Yeah.
I said, but it doesn't.
Has to be keeping it pulling towards the center of the fictitious ball planet. Yeah.
Right.
It just doesn't work though. I mean, the only thing they can do is go and dig up some dusty old documents of vacuum-driven gyroscopes that employ the use of things called pendulous vanes, which are basically used to dampen the movement of the gyroscope in aeroplanes that were making high maneuverability.
Like when they filmed the parabolic spacewalks and the parabolic maneuvers?
No, it was after World War II, after they started having dogfights and stuff, because a freestanding gyroscope, undampened, unweightened, will topple if you go, beyond 60 degrees or whatever in either direction. If you're doing loops, if you're pulling high-speed maneuvers in these things, then
Right.
an undampened,
Mm-hmm.
universally mounted gyroscope will topple at some point. So what they employed were, weights on the bottom. Sometimes these were electromagnetic, so that was used to cage it when it was on the ground. Cage it, meaning to draw it level with the outside horizon, or the tarmac. But this is the straws that they're grasping at, that say magically somehow these small dampening, aiding effects to modern gyroscopes are responsible for pulling it to the center of the Earth via gravity, and that's what accounts for the curve of the Earth adjustments. The problem is that these additions and aids to these gyroscopes didn't come into effect until the mid-30s, and gyroscopes have been used perfectly well for autopilots, for attitude indicators, bearing indicators, you name it, guiding missiles, underwater missiles.
That's a huge fact, John. Just sorry, let me interject. All of the fail-safes in this world are done on simple terms. So there's all these fancy freaking digital equipments and sonars and lasers and all this shit. But when you really come down to it, the crux of it, and you need something, it's all simple stuff. It's all tried, tested, synthetic, simple, easy stuff, right?
Yeah.
That's all.
Another easy one is periscopes. How does a periscope work on a globe Earth?
Yeah, how far does a periscope stick out from above the sea? Does anyone know?
I almost...
Try Googling it and you can't find out. I looked that up. It's an impossibility to get that information.
Really?
I tried and I went 2 pages and couldn't get anywhere. I got naval shit and nothing else. Just to come back, stuff. John, because I've got a point on that, which might lead to an experiment with your gyroscope, right? What globers say is that the pull of gravity corrects the gyroscope. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we can say that 9.8 newtons per meter squared is enough force applied to realign a gyroscope then.
Okay.
If you apply a total force of 9.8 meters, now how you apply that and know that you've applied it to the actual spinning disc evenly is a separate point. But what they're saying is if you apply a force of 9.8 meters, it realigns a gyroscope. So you can test that by applying 9.8 and does it return to the original point or stay where you've put it after you've put it there, having applied 9.8?
Go for
Is
it.
that
what you mean? Will it repossess the other way, stop and then spin the other way?
If it goes back, then you haven't reset the gyroscope, have you? You've just held it in a position for an amount of time and then it's gone back. But if it stays and that's its now fixed position, then surely that answers that question, doesn't it?
Interesting, because all the videos use the gravity as the high-level force that resists and pushes against it that causes this whole thing to move the way it does. So if you can prove that, that's great, man. Yeah, you should try that, John.
But I mean,
and of course, the greater distance you travel, that becomes exponential like the curve, doesn't it? Because the actual rate of twist that you're saying is applied becomes greater and greater and greater the distance you apply. So therefore, if it's not resetting, then the force of gravity changes with distance from where you started from, which is nonsense, obviously. So it can't be that. Do you get me? Yeah. So it either resets per micrometer or it doesn't. But 9.8 is the number, surely. If that's the case.
What I hold, what I find in the box in my head is that we're shown. What's the English astronaut guy? Tim Peake playing around with gyroscopes floating in front of him in 0G, even though they claim the ISS is. It's not 0G, is it? It's something like 9/10 G or something. They reckon it's a huge amount of G. But they're showing this gyroscope floating around in midair. So, either the gravity affects it or it doesn't affect it. It's just ridiculous to me. It's a done deal as far as I'm concerned at the moment.
Hey John, what was that really? You showed us a video probably about 6 months ago now. The guy had that. It was like a large pole with a big weight on the end of it, and he could hardly lift it up. And he spun up a gyro on the end of it, and he was able to lift it up really easily. That was a really, really good one, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I think they do that in lectures.
I think it was normal TV in the 70s, weren't it? The video you're talking about, Rob. It was kind of like Saturday afternoon at the Palladium stuff where he's
Oh, that was
up
with the
a
dumbbells,
really
with the
heavy weight
weights.
and
Yeah,
just
the
lifts it.
dumbbell. That was it.
Yeah,
Dumbbell.
yeah.
Yeah, that was a
Neat.
good one. That shows you what can be accomplished.
Yeah, no, that was an interesting video. No, that was quite a recent one. The guy who did that.
So
Yeah,
that
we'll link that.
does that
Another
not
thing we
demonstrate it affecting electromagnetic forces and therefore supposed gravity, or what we consider gravity? When you're seeing that guy lifting that weight and it's using the gyroscope to lift the weight, isn't that an anti-gravity device? Because it's
Yep.
used.
But they
Absolutely.
explain it with torque and momentum and other whatever they'll explain it away and math it away. And I know that sounds dumb, but that's what they do.
I'm just lining it up now if you want to see it.
Yes, please. Please, sir. Can we have one more?
Are we winding this up then, guys? Or
I'm around.
yeah,
No, we were, but then we started talking again. So no, keep going.
that's only if we were. We need to put a play out to Dr. Tier just to come and join us at some point.
Yeah, that's the one, John. Rare. I like this one.
Yeah, it's fab.
I say I don't think there'd be any more.
Right, so it's
any
not
more
spun up
qualified.
there. So this is just an inert bit of metal. He couldn't pick it up. Alright, now they're going to spin it up. That's me on the right there. Someone else said.
Yep.
You guys have got the funniest impression of what I look like. There you go.
We've only got a flat horizon to judge you by, John. You see, that's one.
And some damn nice looking hands. Slender, albeit, but beautiful.
Pianist's hands.
I'm not going to touch that one.
Yeah, they're funny old things, gyroscopes, but they're very, very simple when you look past the bullshit that we're, told about them. Go look up stuff on gyroscopes and it'll be just full of equations and horse shit. But in reality, just play with one and you'll understand it naturally, quite happily.
John, did you do an experiment where, like the same sort of experiment that you're doing at the moment, but when you spin it up on an angle, so therefore it's, you know what I'm saying? So gravity's not affecting it. Well, you can see that it is because when you spin it up, you're not straight up and down. You spin it up on an angle to start with, and it just stays there. Would that be a good experiment to show?
Yeah, you can do that. Yeah, you can point it in any direction and it'll stay there. And there's videos on YouTube on this as well with Dr. Lathwaite. He does hour-long lectures with really decent gyroscopes, precision gyroscopes from the Royal Society and all this sort of stuff, and shows exactly what you're talking about. Yeah, that it'll stay sticking in one direction on an angle.
Look at that, right over his head. The basic form of free energy. Who said that?
I don't know if it is. I don't know if the energy's being transformed somewhere else or what. They're certainly interesting. I can't admit that I understand them to any extent, but I know what their properties are. And the properties go to prove that we're not on a spinning ball. Hence why we don't see gyroscopes in science museums or anywhere else. Even the Foucault gyroscope that's in the Paris Museum is a replica of the original, so no one knows what the original was.
Who relies on gyroscopes, Sean, in the world that the sheeple know and the MSM world? What institutions, people, professions rely on gyroscopes?
Airplane pilots, helicopter pilots, submarine engineers, whatever they're called.
Anybody who uses a mobile phone, who knows, do you know what I mean? And basic equipment have gyroscopes, don't they?
Well, the mobile phone ones these days are like meme gyroscopes. They're more built on accelerometers and other. I'm not going to get too in depth.
Okay,
into
they're just different purpose.
Well,
you're saying, John, those ones?
They're electronic, so anything electronic runs through a program. So the program can be programmed to show whatever it wants to at whatever point. Like, for example, the PlayStations have a gyroscope in them, an electronic gyroscope in them that proves the Earth is rotating.
Have you seen that video? It's shocking.
This is why I stick to mechanical gyroscopes rather than anything electronic, because you can't. It's infinitely harder to fake.
But what you're saying,
video say we base the assumption on that they've put the rotation into the thing. Anyway, that video I watched it a long time ago, but I remember being critical of their assumptions in
the PlayStation one. You mean?
Yeah, the PlayStation control receive one, isn't it? It's set up on the turn, the old record player, isn't it? I think so.
Something along those lines, yeah. But at the end of the day, it's not a mechanical.
The point is, the software is based on the assumption that a gyroscope does what it says on the tin.
Of course, that's the whole point. I mean, no matter what it's doing, the software will interpret it like declination on your compass. You know, essentially what you're doing is taking a compass reading and then you're running that compass reading through the software, which is the declination equation, and you're coming out with what you're told is what should be the accurate reading. But like you say, we're running it through software, which is giving you a skewed result.
See George Soros voting machines.
Perfect example. Yeah, anything that runs through software can be manipulated because it's man created. It's written by man, whereas a mechanical
and it's programmable too, right? Programmable.
Absolutely, it's programmable. Look at timeanddate.com, SunCalc, MoonCalc. Like we were going to talk about Dr. Zach's video that came out today. These things, they tell us they're accurate, but I can tell you they're not for a start, because I've looked at the sunrise and the sunset on the winter and summer solstice, and they don't add up to what's being told online on these logarithm-based predictors.
Same problem with flight trackers and GPS. It's their system. That's the problem.
Of course.
So, I hear you.
Absolutely. So this is why the gyroscope was the kick in the crotch. You can't manipulate a manual, mechanical gyroscope in as easy as you can something that runs through a bit of software that you didn't write. That you can't access.
My whole thing here, John, was all of these is really esteemed professional, governmental, military, retail, whatever, rely solely on this. Well, we really trust and believe that the gyroscope is what is the shit. This is tells you, this keeps you, and it works on the ball. So how much longer can they deny the results when you keep proving, like what you did incredibly, when you keep using the tried, tested, true gyro to show opposite results? How long can they hold the denial up? What's going to happen?
Well, this is why I'm getting contacted now by gyroscope technicians, by land surveyors, by pilots, by senior captains and pilots on flag flying airlines. Once you point this out to anyone who's involved in this sort of arena, this area, in a day on a daily basis, it's going to be very difficult to gloss over this sort of thing. Radar operators and air traffic controllers and flight stewards, pilots, you name it. They're all starting to look at this as they come in contact with this. They're starting to look at it probably from a position of ridicule and laughter, and I'll shut these guys up in a couple of minutes, as we all did. And these are intelligent people. You can't pull the wool over their eyes unless they have a chronic vested interest or an ego that they've gone round. They're so invested in space and the fact that they're right all the time and this sort of thing, that they can't see past what's right in front of their eyes, insofar as like a gyro technician contacted me and said that on the he worked for the US Navy, and when they fire up the gyroscopes on the boats, they've got to come to port a day and a half early to fire up the gyroscopes, because they take that long to spin up. Now, an hour and a half after spinning up that gyroscope, it would have precessed off its original caging line due to the spin of the Earth.
Supposed.
I mean, 6 hours time, it would have been 90 degrees off.
90 degrees, yeah, you got it.
12 hours time, it would have been 180 degrees off. No matter where they were on the globe, these are the figures that they would have been registering if that equipment was capable of registering in it. And of course, that equipment was designed initially exactly to measure that. So, this is why Rob Durham and that are pulling gyroscope directional mechanisms and stuff from airplanes and things, and running them, showing that they're not showing any deviation on their kitchen table, whereas they should. It's going to come to a fore, because intelligent people are and people with money are putting their money where their mouth is on this sort of thing. They're hiring fleets of planes and gyroscopes, and they're launching balloons, and they're doing all sorts of things. This isn't going away.
It's almost a new revolution of self-exploration and exploration in the world. I mean, with provable things, it's so bloody exciting. It's so exciting. But I wanted to just touch on what she said about the gyroscope there. And see, I look at I may not be the smartest with the math, but I'll look at stuff like the emotions of it. So I always look at this. You can learn a great deal from what people use themselves and rely on. So I always look at that. If people are really against one thing, I know that one thing probably exists and is real, and they actually fear it. And I take the same thing to this, right? If you know what I'm saying, right, John?
Sure.
Yeah. I lost the last part of it because I thought the call smashed out, but yeah.
No, I think there's a couple of us left.
Yeah.
Still there? Are we still alive?
There's three of us. I think Rob's disappeared, but
Well, maybe we should wrap it up then. Where can we find
yeah,
you, James?
I think that's the show. I think that's the show, guys. I think that was a decent chat.
Yeah, it was great.
Nothing we planned, but all good.
Yeah, never what we planned.
No, you kind of slapped a bit in at the end, but it was. But yeah, no, I thought that was interesting, guys. A real good broad chat about a few topics. Really, it was cool.
Well, hopefully I'll get a few more videos out explaining it a little better, because I know it's a micro niche area, but it really shouldn't be that difficult to explain. But
well, I hope it's nothing, John. John, if nothing else, I hope that the show shows that something that a tweet can't is that you're not trying to pull the wool over people's eyes. You're trying to investigate and figure it out. And as unfortunate and butthurt as it is for globe earthers who believe it's spinning, you are not able to demonstrate that. And if you were, that's what you'd be showing.
Yeah.
That's what I mean. But it's not there. It's not there. Now, you can argue all you like whether it's a crappy wire that somehow, whatever. But the facts are there. If people have got real criticism, I'd be interested in listening to it. Do you know what I mean? And working on it. Do you know what I mean?
When do you think it's coming? Because I think what you're seeing now in terms of resistance from Globers is just really, what they think, very smart, educated people who don't have any time for it. And I think they have to troll us and maybe look at it. But when do you think we're actually going to see some real resistance from some, hard Globers on it?
Video the other day that Jaron put out about the students showing the curve of the Earth. Did you see that?
I've been in touch with one of the guys on Twitter, and because what was interesting was when you watched the thing going down. Yeah, I mean it was a total GoPro lens. I didn't even mention that to him. But I've chatted with one of the guys, and what I thought was interesting, and what you always see happening, is the balloon burst. Because I think we chatted it out either online in the past about putting valves in balloons and stuff.
Yeah.
But they had some release software that allowed a controlled descent, because obviously the equipment was paid for by the British taxpayer. So we didn't want it landing in a field in France. So it's, you know what I mean? It was so I think they had some. Apparently, it failed. The balloon burst still, but they had software for it. So I'm waiting. He said he's going to. I'll get access to it when everybody else does. But the university is going to release that data on that release mechanism.
The fact that they could send up, that sort of expensive equipment, blah blah blah, and it's got a GoPro lens on it. I mean, was there no one in that department that just turned around and went, well, hold on a minute, can we not stick a normal lens on there so that we can see it through our own eyes rather than some ball lens?
Well, but that's the point. The whole thing, if you look at the YouTube video, was sponsored by GoPro, wasn't it? But I don't care about that, John, right? What I know is I think it was me, you, and James, wasn't it, anyway, that were talking about this. And basically, us three have come up with the same combined efforts of the University of Leicester, which is a controlled descent.
To have a balloon that had a valve on it that let out air as it felt it was going to explode. Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
as it escalated, as it went higher.
No-brainer, surely.
It would have to be.
Well, apparently, but they have proper software on there, so I'm interested to see that. But again, it was just a total, as Jaron smashed it. Do you know what I mean? Total bendy lens at the
bendy lens. Yeah,
bendy lens.
But I would be interested to hear from anyone involved in that experiment that had misconceptions or had some grievances about the fact that they were using only those cameras, and how on earth. Do you know what I mean? Now that it's been plastered all over the papers and the mainstream as these students prove the curve of the Earth. That's exactly what the headline was.
That's disinformation for the younger generation, though. It seems like pre-programming for the kids and the people maybe 3 generations down the line, right? Were they young, like 20s, 25s?
Students, I imagine they were, yeah, but
it doesn't matter, mate. Have a look at the Twitter feed. There's for every standard student comment you'd expect, there's a bucket load of. It's a GoPro lens, you idiots. Are you thick? Do you think the curvature is the same below the clouds as afterwards? You can't delete a timeline. It doesn't. Honestly, it's not worth
People
arguing.
aren't
The
falling
world
for
did it for you now.
People are
No,
not
fill
falling
the
for it
timeline
anymore.
with it. No,
We're making a difference. We are making a difference. On a side note, guys, Adam, I don't think we've ever told you, but one of our goals at the Iron Realm is to launch one of Picard's capsules with us in it.
yes.
And I've
All of
recently found, yep. And
All
I've
of us at
recently,
one time. Can't think of any problem there.
Are we all
No.
going up together?
Well, 5 of us. Anyways,
I'll bring the Hennessy. I'll bring a bottle of Hennessy, boys, and we'll have fun.
I'll bring a parachute.
yep. Bring 2, please. No. I've just found out that the province that I live in Canada is actually the best place for ballooning. So we probably want to do a launch out here, which would be great.
I gave a donation towards Bob's Globebusters balloon launch, and I'm eagerly awaiting the next one. But I'd be more than happy, guys, to have a more hands-on stuff, because I mean, the point I was making in terms of the reason I contacted this guy was to get hold of this data to pass it on to Bob. But I mean, if we could use it ourselves,
Let's build a parachute. Let's build a balloon.
I'd like to think, Adam, that you've been a whatchamacallit, an honorary member of the realm since we've had you on. So it'd be great to get you on board.
That's a pleasure. Yeah. As long as if I get a badge or like a card, a membership card, then I'm happy.
We got a guy working on stickers.
No, that's offer accepted, guys. It's cool.
I think it's kind of unusual. I haven't heard anybody else thinking about it either. But I mean, I would, and I'm serious. I would totally recreate it, and that's the goal, to do what that wonderful Picard did.
That would be awesome. I don't know about my wife letting me do it. I'm not good with heights. We have a place called the Heights of Abraham, which is like a place that goes up one of the cliffs in Derbyshire in a cable car. And oh man, I'm not good. I'm not good. I get halfway up there and I can see the road beneath me, and I'm bad. Do you know what I mean? So I don't know about stopping it.
Have you seen
floating egg?
Have you seen the bridge in China? They just built its glass over a very high height. You wouldn't go there.
No.
I walked out on the Portsmouth Spinnaker the other day with the glass bottom floor on it, and no, I don't like that.
I went up to the CN Tower in Toronto a bunch when I was a kid, and they have a glass floor at the very top. That was nerve-wracking.
No, not for me. I'd much rather send up a proper 35mm lens, 50mm lens.
Yeah.
Well, it looks like so you guys will stay on the ground, and me and the other 2 monkeys, we will go up in the capsule.
James, I'm happy to fund. Yeah, I'll give you a camera, right? And I'd be happy with that, bro.
We're gonna put you in Communications Alpha. You will be the mission coordinator.
I'd be happy with that, but mate, you won't get me up there. You won't get me up there.
Well, I know there's 2 other guys that will come with me, so it's gonna be exciting.
I'd rather go to Antarctica or the Arctic in a boat.
when are we going to see something? When are we going to hear of somebody that actually went and did it and either got shot down, got told they couldn't, got a permit, or actually made it and can show us something? It's got to be on people's minds to get there.
There was someone on Twitter a few months back who said that they chartered a plane to Antarctica and they got turned away by the military, or
I would suggest that the mainstream media also, as well as lying to us, acts as a warning mechanism, and that if you look at stuff, you'll see there was reports recently of lone crosser dies trying to get to Antarctica, and that's not a
well,
news
one of the
story.
Queen's cousins died recently, didn't he?
Well, yeah, but they're quite clear messages. If you try this, you'll be dead. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Not only have we put this, and this here, if you then actually get there and start it, you'll be unfortunately fail on your
Plus
intrepid
plus
expedition.
Galactic,
Just
Virgin
recent.
Galactic,
Mhm.
you name it. Anything going up or out is destined for failure. Is what the programming that we get is.
Desolation, death, devoidness, not possible. Other
Down to
people
the feature
smarter
films.
have done
There've
it.
been feature films recently, haven't there, on Antarctica and voyages. You know, there was one last year, I think it was, and it was just death and desolation and cold and bitter winds.
Even David Attenborough's "Only the Emperor Penguins Survive." You know, it's deadly. You know, and now it'll be interesting to see what the story is. But you guys have just made me remember something that I am so excited to talk about. Is how much land on the map are they hiding right now? Like, just if you go out in the Pacific Ocean or whatever, and you just, you know, if you go to certain coordinates on the Earth, there's land and we don't know about it. It's not on our maps.
Well,
how much of it do you think there is?
I went out on a 50-foot schooner and mapped it personally, and can tell you that there's 32% more land than they tell it. No, I'm talking bollocks. Unless we've been there, we have no idea. We have no idea if we're just the inner circle.
Humor me. Postulate.
Not a chance. No.
I would postulate to you that there are old maps that show islands in the Atlantic that apparently aren't there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I'm not just talking about stuff like High Brazil and places like that, but if you look around Iceland, there are a number of islands that were there in the 1600s that don't apparently exist, and etc. There's
exactly what I'm talking about.
That.
Yeah.
And then if you think about the Pacific, which is something which has less traffic and is traversed significantly less and is twice as big, how much could you hide there? So my answer, like John, is I don't know, but I think the possibility to hide huge amounts of land, and if you start to reimagine the map, I'm happy to dismiss the Gleasons. It's a useful tool. I don't necessarily think it's an accurate reflection, and
that's where we succeed, though. We don't claim as flat earthers to have this baby all locked up, and that's why we will continue to look at every point. We're different.
It would be unscientific, wouldn't it? It would be totally unscientific to say that is fact, because that is not scientific to say that.
We're happy to say I don't know is the difference between flat earthers and heliocentric pseudoscientists. We don't know, because we don't have a budget of £50 million a day to go and find out. Give us a budget of £50 million a day and we'll tell you within a week what the hell we're setting on and where the boundaries are and whatever.
I'll tell you what else, John, and this is from a science boy that's started to look into this and looking at other spheres, astronomy and physics and stuff, is that I'm not also prepared to have an ideology, a theory, and when I'm presented with clear evidence to the contrary of that theory, invent things such as dark matter, dark energy to keep alive my theory. I'm more than happy to rewrite
Gravity,
my theory and
black
start from
holes.
zero. Yeah. And I think that is actually what's gone wrong is we've built shit upon shit upon shit, and we're
It's
so far up our own arse that and we believe it.
What we call the fundamentals of
Mm.
our modern day science are
Mm.
literally built on assumptions, and
And theories.
absolutely you go and trace it back to its basic source of how did they find out the distance to the moon, the distance to the sun, the distance to planets. It's based on Kepler's assumptions, or not necessarily assumptions, but they never ever had a linear distance to any celestial object in space. So there is absolutely no. Kepler may have put the nail on the head saying that it was 0.72 AUs away, and therefore we can work out from his formula that it's this far away. That's in relation to this, it's this far away. But without a linear distance to start with, the entire thing is based on theory, assumption, and guesswork. You know, I've no problem agreeing that if we can find one true distance to a celestial object out there, that we can then put the entire puzzle piece back together. We can put the entire solar system, if they want to call it that, back together. But the fact is that we don't have that linear distance between us and a celestial object in order to map out everything else that we've assumed. All these light
We ain't
years,
got
billions of light
squat,
years. We've got
dude.
squat.
We ain't got. We got squat diddly. We got a bum hand at the poker table, and they're bluffing us for 30 years like they got a royal flush. It's unbelievable. We're sitting on
Absolutely.
rotten cabbage.
Yeah,
We
good
gotta get
analogy.
it out.
Get
We
it.
gotta get it
The
out.
emperor has no clothes. Is the
Absolutely.
be all and end all of it, is that they really do not have anything that we can base our fundamental cosmological beliefs on. It's pure sand.
And
A bunch
that
of
ain't that the truth? Because you'd think by now. I mean, how long you been? I don't know what's year and a half, 2 years that I've been. No, year and a half. I've been following this. Do you know what I mean? And intrigued by it.
Yep.
Thanks to certain individuals. Do you know what I mean? Who poke you and I use it as a tool now. I mean, I interact with people who I would consider intellectual and degree held, doctorate held, etc., etc. And I'll tell you, there's a difference now, mate. Is that people don't call me mental when I start it.
Really?
Yeah. Whether that's because I hold a certain position or I'm a gobshite and they think, oh, just shut up, Meekin. Do you know what I mean? It could be that. Oh, he's off again. Do you know what
I mean? Remember, you're the key to that because a lot of people don't give a shit. So they're reading you as a person. And
Yeah.
the longer
here's a good example. A guy that I've known for 12, 13 years is a rep, and we've always debated, I should say, intelligently stuff. Do you know what I mean? In terms of when he's been bringing drugs, and he's from a very, very different background to me. His dad's a High Court judge and stuff. A real, very different to my working class upbringing. And I mentioned it to him in between Christmas and New Year. He popped in, and he didn't shoot me down. And I got on my whiteboard that I used to teach the students and showed him some orbits and stuff and a few other bits and bobs, and got a few texts a few days later saying, oh, this one makes sense. And you know what I mean? Not. And he's the sort of guy that would go, and I'd take it really well, you complete and utter numpty.
That's brilliant, though. I mean, that's amazing. Amazing stuff.
Well,
yeah,
like I said the other day, is that I think we can literally convert or persuade or push someone into testing it for themselves with the right approach. But the problem is finding that right approach, and I unfortunately used up a lot of bad approaches with
No, and
valuable friends.
how many people are you tight enough with to get the shot? Because if you don't have a lot of friends and a big outlet, like, you're not gonna get the shot.
Yeah, I had a small amount of friends, and now I've got a very small amount of friends because I
Yeah.
used the wrong approach. Basically, I wouldn't. I
You
wouldn't.
only ever had the same amount of friends, mate.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're right. You're right.
So true.
You're right. But the point is there is a right approach with each and every person out there, and I think I'd if I had my time again on that, I don't think I'd change anything. But now I know that there is a different approach for different people, and I would certainly
Smart man.
evaluate the situation clearer before I jump in and go, yo, first flat, dude, don't you know?
My brother-in-law, who I speak to, periodically over drunken evenings when he comes down and family meetups. So it's always
Mhm.
he's more than happy to accept the world is flat, right?
Yeah.
He doesn't argue with anything I give him, but as he says to me, I really don't care.
Don't care. Yeah, there you
Don't
go.
care. What's their face?
What's the point? So what?
Yeah, you know?
I lost my brother-in-law with the moon landings being fake. No, can't happen. Can't be the case. Nope.
I've seen it.
Yeah,
Yep.
I lost another mate with chemtrails,
Hmm.
and I've lost another mate. That was just ego. Yeah, no, it's
I've got a mate on chemtrails started me off on one of the early things post 9/11. Chemtrails was one of the things that I noticed as just a sentient person.
Hmm.
What are these things? They never was there when I was a kid. There was,
Nope.
do you know what I mean? And that, and one of the girls that works for me, her husband is aerospace engineer for Rolls Royce, which is in just outside Nottingham. And he does the safety checks on the engines and all this sort of stuff. And I raised chemtrails to him, and I'm still waiting. Other than it being a contrail, of which I've given him new, we can all cite.
Yep.
It's not this. It's So
even then, you run the risk of losing him at the outcome, though, because even if he says it, he'll be like, "So what? So they're spraying something. It's probably not what you think." They're not willing to look at the bigger picture outside of that, Adam. And I think, like, Rob has people in his life that you get to a point and then they just disassociate anyways. Like,
Yeah.
who cares? It's not round. So what?
That's cognitive dissonance. That's exactly what cognitive dissonance is.
It's the ends of, if I'm being honest, it's the ends of the cognitive dissonance. Most of the time you convince yourself that something isn't true because of other attributes in your belief system. What you're starting to see now, and this is the positive thing from my perspective, is people aren't no longer seeking solace in the positive aspects of their system, their belief system. They are dismissing all aspects of both systems. And that's the end of an argument. It's the end of an argument. It's not long to dispel it before something will make it
as
pop.
they say, isn't it? It's the first they violently oppose you, blah blah blah, and then finally they all admit that it was obvious from the beginning, which is basically them saying, "So what? So what? So they're spraying. So what?" That is them reaching the end of the what is it? The process of denial or something or whatever.
They're putting on the rose glasses. That's what sorry to bring in the Bible, but biblically, that's what they say. A real fool. The meaning of a real fool is somebody that knows the difference between right and wrong, or how a thing works, and still chooses to go ahead with it. And that's cog dissonance.
That's cognitive dissonance, right? They cannot exercise two opposing paradigms and agree with one, or they need to have one or the
The,
other.
the
They
way
can't
the way
entertain
the way
both.
I was always taught it. I did A-level psychology as a kid because I did physics for a year. I'd had enough. It didn't make sense. It was nonsense, and I genuinely had enough. And it was I said to the teachers, I need something nice, easy A-level, which didn't go down well. So I said I either fancy sociology or psychology because I should easily get a pass in that anyway. So I ended up with psychology, and I did get a pass, but that's in there. But I remember in within that, being taught that at A level. Do you know what I mean? Those
How did
basic
they do it?
fundamentals. And
Cognitive.
the analogy they gave me is that you go and buy a pair of shoes, and you buy them for 30 quid, and you walk down the street, and you see the identical pair of shoes for 25 quid. But on the way home, you convince yourself that those shoes are slightly different, the ones you've got, and the trim's slightly better on the edge, and it's got this on it, and it's got this, and I'm sure the heel's harder wearing, and it's that, deep down that they're the same shoes, but you convince yourself because you don't want to believe you spent $5 or more unnecessarily.
Have you seen the experiment where they get people to pay more for a $20 bill? So they'll bid on it, and it was kind of a mental one. It's on a show called Brain Games, but they start with $20, and then as it turns out, I guess I can't remember. I think the way it works, they ended up getting people to pay more for the 20, just by fooling themselves the same way.
They've done a national version of that here. They brought out the new £5 note, and there's people going around checking to see if they've got on the coding on the side the numbers AK-47, and apparently those ones are worth more. Yeah, I mean it's
come on.
That's Willy Wonka style golden bar stuff, isn't it?
Baseball card.
It's worth more than a £5 on eBay. Yeah.
I remember trying to.
You see, they're bringing out a new. Sorry, James. They're bringing out a new pound coin in the UK. 20 sides or something.
It's pentagon shaped.
I don't know what it is. Yeah, it's got a goat on the back.
Yeah, it's a goat.
Has everyone seen this book here?
And it's red.
You all seen this book here?
I am now.
Right, so we got this was given to one of my boys.
Everything.
Hang on, in the wrong hand.
No, is wrong. Excellent.
All right, it's not what you think. So we were wrong because we thought the Earth was flat. It's not.
Pear shaped.
The person who gave it to my boy is having a go at me. That's why they gave it. They didn't say that.
Don't have to.
No. So it brings up.
You got a wood burner?
Hey?
You got a wood burner?
No. So,
I see it's got all the usual suspects there. Eclipses, Aristophanes, all the bad boys are here. Wait till we break them down.
And they're moving in a curve.
Yeah, when the airplane flies, it looks to be flying in a straight line, but it's actually flying in a curve. Yeah, that's proof.
Don't look. Don't look.
It's written in blue.
When an airplane is what? Go back. When an airplane is flying in what looks like a straight line over the surface of the Earth,
it's actually
which way is it curving? Which way is it curving? Down. So they're saying that planes do nose down. Planes don't fly level; they definitely nose down all the time.
Stop being logical, Adam.
These are not the planes you're looking for.
Not.
Who's printed that?
These are not the planes you're looking for.
If this was done in like 2015, you know it's counter propaganda for flat
Moon
Earth.
landing was a hoax. What are they saying?
Oh my goodness.
What are they saying, Rob?
They're saying the moon landing wasn't a hoax because in 2012, probes orbiting the moon took photos of the spacecraft.
Oh.
So it catches you in. It catches you in thinking, oh, shit, the moon landing was a hoax. And
Yeah,
then
right.
No. This looks like high-level propaganda to the flat Earth, man. Somebody spent some time making this piece of junk.
Who's the publisher?
DeGrasse, it looks like.
Name and shame him.
No, I bet you Neil deGrasse has a hand in this shit, or Bill Nye, I bet. Looks like that.
ABC. I'll go for either Fairfax or ABC.
Shelter Harbor Press, New York.
Right,
I'll go to the
scrabble
back
on
now.
that, Google.
Author. What do we got? So author Tom Jackson.
I'm bought a lot.
For sales in the United States and Canada.
Toucan.
Toucan Books.
The picture researcher.
I'll be right, 2015.
Yeah, that's new. Wow.
So that'll be after the flat Earth revelation and realization became popular.
Yeah.
Interesting. So, and that'll be also tying in with after with the NASA releasing the second photo of the Earth since 1972. That they released kindly for our $50 million a day back in 2015.
Super strong gravity, hey? Black holes have super strong gravity.
But I thought gravity was a constant.
Is that Stephen Hawking they're mentioning too? Might as well throw in a high-level name. The name drop.
Black hole. Ben Light.
Notice how they put this.
If an astronaut fell into a black hole, he or she would be stretched like elastic when crossing the event horizon.
Says astronaut Mr. Bean.
No, but that's look, guys, that has to be true because they've got all the proof of previous experiments where they've put stuff into a black hole and seen it stretch.
Absolutely. Look, they've got a bloody photo.
Up that evidence, and it's there that proves that if you go past the black hole, you stretch past it.
Says
because Stephen Hawking says so.
Who was there?
No, he's dead.
Look, they've got
that looks like Mr. Bean.
Alan Bean, I'm talking about. Alan Bean's not dead, is he?
Man, he must have been dead years ago.
Rob, can you take a bunch of high-level shots with your good camera of that book so I can make memes? Because this is gold. This needs to be tweeted out. I need to make memes stat on this book.
That's a good idea. That is a good idea. Especially if it was a sly kick in the nuts to you, Rob. It would be
it was
funny
sure
thing to make a video.
We are
pointing out how ridiculous it is.
Yeah, let's do a debunk video on it because this is ridiculous.
Full debunk, I like
and then you could give it to your children and then say, and once you've finished digesting that load of garbage, then watch this video that Daddy made.
and learn something.
Isn't there there's a YouTube video out today? Go back to the other page. There's a YouTube video out today that addresses that point about the meteorite. No, just the other side of the book. This bit there. Meteors get hot as they strike through Earth's atmosphere, but what's left of them after hitting the ground is only wanted to
Antarctica.
I think there's somebody that's got this proof that they talk about a 30 million ton meteorite that hits the Earth.
Here we go, that one.
Oh my God, I'm making a meme out of that.
And they've got
Most
1,500
meteorites-
tons of it left. So I think, yeah, it'd be good fun to go through all it book by page, because I bet
Most
they say
meteorites are found in Antarctica.
who finds them.
'Cause
Nobody's
they
allowed
found out.
there.
Mr. Bird.
John Kerry.
Yeah, forgot about this book. Given to us the other day.
I gotta thank your friend, man. This is great. It'll
Yeah.
turn out to be a blessing for us.
Yeah, do thank him. That's hilarious.
Oh, what's this one? ISS? Do they have ISS?
There is no gravity in space. Not quite. It is gravity that keeps Earth in orbit around the sun.
Oh. Magic of gravity.
So there you go. I think that's about it, I think, for the stuff that we like.
It just
There's
goes,
lots
you know
and
what?
lots of stuff in here.
I find it shocking that he goes out of his way because he's so uncomfortable to give your child a book.
This is a bit presumptuous, really, isn't it? You know, what if he'd given him a Bible or a Quran or something?
Yeah, but it's desperate, isn't it? It's a desperate attempt that, Rob, you need to read that and go round and go to him so that he stays sane for the rest of his life and can live in his paradigm. You need to go around and say, I've read your book and shit, I was wrong.
Everything's okay.
It all makes fucking sense now. I don't know what I was thinking about, mate.
Yeah.
If I only gave me that book, it was a bit like the Jehovah's Witnesses coming round. Thank God you turned up on a Sunday morning. You know what I mean? Otherwise, I wouldn't have figured that out.
If I was you, Rob, I would use that book as a learning tool for your children and do one page a night and just get them to read it and go, oh, okay, yeah, that makes sense, no problem.
Oh,
and then
evolution.
Show them your research for the day on how all of it lizard-like scale. Oh, they're on dinosaurs. Here we go. Yeah, I would use that as a curriculum, as a teaching curriculum on how they're being bullshitted from day zero.
Oh my gosh. I got to get this in digital. You got to copy this on the whole book in digital form so we can debunk this sucker frame by frame. It's going to be majestic.
There is 100,000 memes in there, isn't there?
Oh, I can smell the fear coming off the book and where as far away as you are, Rob. And second of all, it's crazy. It shows me they're scared.
Get Karen on the case with her memes as well, and Mike as well.
That's the worst one, guys. Dinosaurs, you know. That shows that the people who are messing with our minds. They're evil
Such a
fuckers.
fraud.
Yeah, but I love dinosaurs. I love dinosaurs, and they've ruined dinosaurs. I could cope with not having Star Wars, but dinosaurs just really.
But they've only been around 200 years.
I know, but do you know what I mean? That's what I'm saying. That's evil, man. That's messing with your child.
Dude,
man. The
100%.
final frontier. They destroyed the final frontier.
You
But
can have Star Trek. I'm not bothered, right? But dinosaurs, that's fucking harsh. Because
we've just discovered a new frontier, i.e., south.
Huh? Come again?
Yeah, but it's cold. It's cold.
How do we know?
Yeah, okay, fair point.
We've no idea. We have no idea.
I do have a theory on this. That it's hot on the other side. So you talk about this is a bit deep. It will take a bit of explaining if you want to waffle.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. So if you think about Mount Meru and a toroid, we really need Richard for this one. And he'd probably help explain it. But if you think about Mount Meru and a toroid, and they talk about Meru being Eden, etc., etc., and there's at Mount Merrow, it's daylight all the time, and you follow that toroid on the outside all the way to, and it sucks light in, and you have to listen to Ken Wheeler's stuff. Really,
great stuff.
But as it pulls it into the centripetal central acceleration down, yeah, well, that is also going to pull light and heat, that magnetic field. So the point on Mount Meru is going to be lit 24/7 because it's going to pull light via the magnetic fields down on those toroids or those fields wherever the sun is on its orbit. So it's always going to be. So that's why I'm doing this map drawing stuff based on magnetics. But so that's in the center. But if you then think on the outside,
where is it, Adam, on the map? Like what country and who controls the actual location of Mount Meru? Just for shits and gigs.
Who knows? Well, if you look at Google Earth, it's water in it now. It used to be ice that they draw a bit of, but it's just water. So there's definitely nothing there north, and that's why there's all this nonsense about the south. Because I think you can go north, but nobody needs to look north, do they? Top Gear's even been there, so there's definitely not a need to look north.
Do you know
and I think that's the place you can go. But the point I was making on the south, so if you imagine that toroidal field, which is definitely empowered, on the outside, there's going to be a pull on the reciprocating southern magnetic pole that must exist in a magnet. So as that's going to pull it. So on the outside of that toroid, which I assume is on the outside of what we call the South Pole or the perimeter, there should also be light and heat generated there, which if you follow some of the other stories, which such as the Iron Realm, yeah, that fits and makes sense in that sense as well, because it talks about the sun disappearing and then reappearing and then kind of being there constantly in this strange light.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't have much faith in that document, but like I say, some people do.
There's a lot to the torus sphere, though, and the lens model that merits looking at. I completely agree.
Yeah,
I do enjoy the experiments with lighters inside bowls and things like this, showing the light going all the way around the outside of the bowl, depending on where you put it inside the bowl. I like that sort of thing. That's Jeffrey Grupp did a lot on that. I think the sun, the moon, the stars, everything we see is beyond our comprehension at the moment, because we've been so brainwashed. Even the people, us that have unlearned so much stuff, have been so brainwashed from birth to accept numerous things that it's almost impossible to see what is right in front of our eyes. That's what I think.
Everything that we have to imagine, you did it earlier, John. Incidentally, you used the term solar system, and that's the trouble. You're kind of having to reinvent every frame of reference that you have that's bigger and scales up as you try to conceive of stuff and reconceive of stuff. You're having to reinvent the frame of reference it in, because there's nothing there, because the construct of the lie is fantastic.
I know how to do that, though. I know a way to do it. You got to shut off your TV and connect yourselves with like-minded people. It helps.
Well, how can I do that?
Well, you're too. I know. I mean, I was removed from the system. I mean, I'm here by plan, I guess, but it wouldn't. The position I'm in, I wouldn't have chosen. So I am here, so it's easy for me, I guess.
I shut the TV off 7 years ago. voluntarily.
And probably the best thing you did 7 years ago.
Absolutely. God, yeah. It's you think you're going to be bored, but that was the time I discovered, podcasts and past lectures, and I
Talking
realized,
face to face
yeah,
again.
talking, yeah, yeah, funny that, because they tried, they successfully killed that in the UK in Britain by destroying the pubs. That's where I spoke to, hundreds of people.
Yeah, too right.
And they murdered that.
Strangers.
Yeah, strangers.
I'm going,
it
guys.
Doesn't matter.
Dude,
All right,
take care.
Rob, take it easy, bud.
All right. See ya.
Have a good one.
See ya, bud.
Thanks for sharing the book.
I could be standing in a pub next to Sir General so and so, and the guy who delivers coal, and
the town lawyer.
Chef. Yeah, the chef, the town lawyer, the geologist. Yeah, absolutely. And no one. It's where you leave your ego at the door a lot of the time. It's the equivalent of the smoking room that will.
I miss those
outside the smoking door, where you're
just
rubbing
sharing
shoulders
a butt
with the managing director and stuff, who's puffing on a Rothmans or whatever, and
Rothmans Blue.
Yeah, that's the classic. That's why I always loved smoking, is because you always meet the most interesting people in the outside the smoking room.
But it's not worth it, man. I mean, I do too. I'll never have those little moments with strangers where we're huddled outside in the Canadian winter sharing a ciggy, or meeting someone after literally dying mentally on a plane because you couldn't smoke for 7 hours, and then you find that one other smoker and you rush to the exit. I'll never do that again, but it's still worth it to quit. I must say, for now.
You're hastening my post on my blog about smoking and how we've got it completely wrong.
I know. I was hoping I would, because I've been afraid of it, and lately I've been learning to face my fears. So I want to stand and meet that challenge, because I think there's something to it.
About 2 years ago, I was exactly the same. I thought, you're a researcher, then you need to research the things that are potentially doing you harm. So I started researching drinking and smoking, and as much as I tried, from an unbiased point of researching smoking, I couldn't help but come across numerous lengthy, well footnoted, well researched, well linked articles telling me exactly why smoking was actually good for you, why it was protectorant for your lungs, why it was insisted upon by the deans of public schools in London and around, like Eton and what was the other one? Eton and I can't remember the other one, but
you've got to make sure to tell everyone, though, that the type of tobacco you're talking about is not this poisonous death sticks that the big companies make.
No,
it's
what I'm
different.
Talking about
correct?
Is tobacco. What I'm not talking about is cigarettes.
Excellent. Just thought I'd clarify that for the listeners.
I'm not talking about cigarettes. I'm talking about tobacco, and at the moment, it's as pure tobacco as you can get. But
I'll tell you what, John.
yeah.
there's what you're saying there, and I was about to interject, and then you qualified it, and I have a lot of theories about cancer, stuff I've read, privately for years about its cause, and it's not something I'd want to get into now. But the point you make, that you and James make there, in terms of not the muck you're given in cigarettes and that now, but actually tobacco and that, and
you can grow your
there
own.
are issues, and it goes back to causes of all cancer. But
Man,
I think that's a chat for another time that I wouldn't even want to start now. But
agree.
It'd be a really good chat because I've got a lot of good alternative theories as to the causes of cancer.
Like to get the doctor on that one, and me being a cancer survivor would be good as well. But it'd be great to get the Dr. T and you guys talking all about that on a health show or something.
I've been sort of personally researching cancer for about the past 5 years, as I was convinced that was going to be what killed me, and I was shit scared, to be perfectly honest, which is why I decided, to kick myself up the arse and say, you're a researcher, now go and research it. If you're going to, if you're going to be scared of something, then at least have a rational fear of it and understand what it is that you're scared of. And yeah, after 5 or 6 years of researching it, I've come to certain conclusions as well, which I'd like to share with anyone else who's sort of done similar. So yeah, I'd be up for a sort of show on that, because cancer is not something I'm scared of anymore, or smoking or anything else I'm doing, because I can see, I believe I can see now where the cancer is coming from and how to prevent it. Hugely arrogant point of view, and a hugely stupid point of view to put across, as I don't have cancer and I don't plan
And
on
that's the
having
only
cancer.
reason. That's the only reason you say it, because you think, oh, I'll touch wood. I'll say that just in case I get cancer. And if I say that, I won't get cancer.
Well, it goes a little bit further than touching wood. There's a lot of research behind it. And what I do is, I don't want to live forever, but what I do want to do is mitigate my bad habits with good habits, so that
There's
I can
no
live both
chance for us. There's no place for us.
Who's that, James?
What is this thing that builds our dreams,
Who's
yet
that, James?
slips away from us? Who wants to live forever?
Ah, the Queen. Lovely. Lovely.
It's Saturday night. I thought, have a boo.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. Did that make sense though? I mean,
It did, yeah, a lot.
Yeah. The only thing I'd say is the rate of cancer increase. It's.
But cancer's caused by toxins.
You see, getting into it.
It's toxins in your body. So the more toxins,
coupled with choices that you make, that has some effect, I believe.
Well, that's a choice of whether I put a toxin in my body or not. But then there's non-choice toxins like chemtrails and pesticides and fluoride and all these other toxins. Some you have a choice as to whether you put in your body. Do you drink that red can, or do you scoff down cornflakes, or do you eat something that's labelled on the side with 100 E numbers? That those are choices you make. A lot of choices we can't make ourselves, because they're forced on us, like vaccines when you're a 3-year-old or a 1-year-old or whatever. That's a toxin, and the more toxins you put in your body, the more your body will encapsulate those toxins and turn into things like tumours, and manifest themselves in what your doctor's going to tell you is cancer. And in reality, it is a toxin, and the cancer is the symptom, is the body trying to deal with the overload of toxins in the body. So you've got to get that toxins out of there.
Do you subscribe to the base acid assumption that equality is necessary to lean one way or the other to prevent it?
Do you mean the pH sort of?
Mm-hmm.
I've done a lot of research on that, and I've swayed from left to right, from +1 to -1. I don't know about the pH stuff.
I just think it's
acids,
logic. It's logical to me. I mean, I can say from my personal experience, John, that I worked way too hard and I did not live properly in the 5 years leading up to my cancer. So, I mean, I think, but that has a great deal to do with moderation and keeping some balances in check. So that's why I thought if you were a subscriber to what I asked. And also, I'd like to add the other way is there's people that lived organic, haven't had toxins, and have eaten extremely well their entire lives and still gotten it. So there's also an argument on that end, unfortunately.
Yeah. Okay. So that was two things. What was the first one? Sorry. Okay, we'll do the second one. People who've lived it. I mean, you've got people like Andre Moritz. Are you familiar with him?
Mm-hmm.
From Hawaii, he wrote a lot of books, probably covering the pH level and everything as well. There are those people that think they're living a pure and beautiful life, but they don't test their water. They don't, they may be drinking from a spring or something, but that spring is contaminated from an aluminium factory up the road. It's just.
You can eat the sweetest of foods, John, right? But if you're sour inside, that has a much bigger effect as well. And input is one thing. Well, it is, but yeah, getting late, as James said. But it's also the truth,
No, I agree. I agree. Sentiment.
Yeah, there's the way and your intention that comes from you, and
it's like
can have a massive impact on you.
There's a lot to that, Adam.
Intent. The glass of water. Yeah, intent.
Some would say that it might be a way to, control the universe or have it to our advantage a little bit, right? Like what John was just nosing at with the water experiments, correct?
Oh, yeah. I think I'm not maybe getting that deep. I think if you have a positive outlook on life and the way you view life and the way you I'm not talking about people going, well, these sort of people go, I feel terrible and poorly all day. Do you know what I mean? But I'm talking about your general demeanor on life and how you view things. I think that in of itself
is a question for a pharmacist, Adam. But how do you feel about placebos?
Yeah, totally true.
Mm-hmm.
Totally.
I mean, a placebo is probably one of the most powerful, effects.
It's true to a degree. To a good degree, I would say, John. It's just as
in what, but you see it in everything, even to the levels of some cancers. There's stories everywhere, anecdotal stories.
Well, what about the kid with the father though, who whispers to his son that he can make that jump? He gives him the placebo where the kid couldn't make it the jump into the water or couldn't dive, and the father gives him the placebo verbally, and the kid does it. That works.
Yeah.
Same principle, right?
Well, it's just interesting to put it to a pharmacist. Because
the best way I could put it back to you is, I deal with a lot of I have great pleasure is the wrong word, but great pride in trying to provide end of life services to people in the community and making sure we do our bit in making sure that it's not less painful as people pass, you know what I mean? And that requires modern drugs, and it's a horrible thing. But there's a lot of people as they get into the end who have been laying there on their arse, unable to do anything, have a day where they're able to speak and do and say goodbyes and suddenly overcome all the ailments that affected them. And I think that says a lot more about the power of the mind and spirit and how it is much more effective over the body than the body ever realizes. And we all live in a world where we're told everything about the body only affects spirit, that spirit is a reflection of the body. And that's the world we live in now, isn't it? But if you actually look at the end of people's lives, that has a contrary effect. Is the reality that and at the end of people's lives is the denial of that reality, because you can't, unless you're Stephen Hawkins, of course. You know.
Yeah, I have someone extremely close to me going through that right now. Actually, the end of life and the treatment of, morphine as a palliative and all that. So it's I respect you tremendously with what you do. It's a great service. It's honorable. It's very noble. And I wanted to say that there's a lot of wisdom to that little piece you started with, Adam, about being kind and acting good in general in your life. I believe in a creator, and I believe that we exceed when we live the way he wanted us to live. And that's kind, and that's simple, and that's honorable. And I appreciate what you're doing.
I agree with that, James. I don't think you can go far wrong if you try and live by those standards. Good on you.
Yeah. I'm not religious, but without getting religious, there's a bloke who most people know his life. You don't have to believe in what the church tell you about him, but if you kind of try and do in situations what you think he might do, or be a good person, you don't even have to be him. You know, just what a good person would do, and take a second in situations to just absorb that before you. And I used to get in fights a lot,
Is it not just common sense, though, Adam? Is it? I mean,
No, mate, that's not. No, it takes.
We have time, John. Time is everybody else's enemy. You and I have time to look at these things and to leverage time and to know it's our friend. They're affected by the game. I made that mistake when
morals. I mean, morals.
Oh,
don't take time. The morals is just to me anyway.
Nah, everybody's got morals. Everybody knows what they're doing is right or wrong. When you watch Jeremy Kyle, and I fucked my brother's wife. He knew it was wrong. It's not because he's got less morals and he thinks that was right to shag his brother's missus. Yeah, he knew it was wrong. He just chose to take the carnal pleasure instead of being moral.
Agree. Just because we know better doesn't mean we do better. We don't.
No, and it's life's a bit.
I agree with that. It's not so much that we don't, it's common sense to me, but then to me, to live by that common sense, it requires me thinking that, I don't know, maybe I'm being judged, or maybe this is a game, or maybe the whole thing is a setup to test me. So the actual moral side of it matters, but to a lot of people, the moral side doesn't matter at all, because they're told that they're an infinite, random, accidental speck on a speck of a speck going around a speck at 1 billion miles
so
an
reductive.
Hour.
So bloody reductive and hurtful when you think about it.
And that has a lot to answer for, I think. That's the difference between someone, thinking they have a responsibility to act as they're meant to, and someone who thinks that they have no responsibility to do anything because none of it matters either way. I'm just a bubble in a pint glass.
Or I'll do better the next time around when
Yeah,
I'm reincarnated.
absolutely, absolutely, nail on the head. Yeah.
Welcome to the new age. Fuck me. Get me out of here.
So the idea would be to try and persuade people
I've
that
I've read a lot of no. I've got to address that one, James, and maybe this is one for after show. But I've read a lot of when I first started just becoming just awake. Do you know what I mean? That's like started reading religious stuff, started looking at science. Me and my mates questioning space travel, just as geeky stuff. Do you know what I mean? And that. And one of the things I did look at was sort of the reincarnation stuff within the Bible, certainly within Old Testament statements such as, oh God, is it Isaiah that who goes up the Jacob,
42?
Jacob and Isaiah, and there's certain stuff, and again, not for 3 o'clock in the morning. Is in the UK, but something else I'd like I say, you know, I think the Bible's a fan. I'm not a Christian in the sense of
Dude, if you're not a
doctrinal
Christian
form.
and you don't look at the Bible and notice that it is absolute, like, even if you don't believe, man, what the Bible tells you about human nature alone, like let's take Genesis.
That's the
for
point
example.
I was going to make.
Dude.
The Bible is a fantastic source for anyone, whether they are religious, atheist, or anything. Read what in it. There's fantastic wisdom in there. Whether you believe X, Y, Z doctrine or whatever, it's a fantastic document for you to be quiet to and let yourself, whether that's God speaking to you, the Holy Spirit speaking to you, or just yourself, if New Age, you know, just read it. And I think it's a great book. Like I say, I don't subscribe to a doctrine, but I do think, and I also read other religious texts as well. You know?
Well, let me share this story with you if you're all right with it. It comes out of Genesis, and it's one of the reasons why I subscribe to the Bible, even though, you know, a lot of people don't. But the author of Genesis, whoever it is, had so much insight into who we are as people and what we do as people. And let me break that down for you. So Genesis follows the story of Adam and Eve, right? And then, you know, then the story, the fruit, and she gives it to his wife. But what's so astounding and interesting and enriching about the story is what happens next, because it basically sets up all standards of human behavior. Because immediately, what happens? The
snake,
right? But God says to the man, "Who gave you this?" And what does he say? He doesn't say, "Oh, I'm sorry, it was me. I took it." He says, "The woman, and he blames her. And she says, "Oh, it wasn't me. I got deceived by the serpent." So just in that very first story, whoever wrote that knows a hell of a lot about what we do when we're caught, when we hide stuff. What do? We run. What did they do? They hid. So even then, it shows, what do we do as humans when we do something wrong? Well, we hide and we lie. And why do we do that? Because we're afraid. So I don't care what the rest of the book says. I'll read it just for that.
That story in itself, to me, says it's not a physical tale in terms of, because it's clearly allegorical in the sense that they ran and they hid from God. And God says to them, "Where are you? We are hiding from me." Now
he knows.
That's the point that I looked at, and certainly it's not implicated in the Bible that God knew. And there's stuff that when I read into that, I look at that story a lot more in an allegorical sense, as opposed to it being a literal event necessarily. In terms of a lot of important spiritual knowledge, and I'm getting spiritual here, but I'm not into anything, but important stuff is encoded in stories.
Well, what
what
I've
what
heard
matters.
about
And
that
and
is
you would, and
the
I know you disagree with that because that would affect certain
No,
doctrines.
not
But
necessarily. No, I don't, and I believe that it's both, and it can be both, and I think you need to be open to the fact that it can be both things, both allegorical in a way, and also historical in the sense that the words are inspired from the creator. And if you look, oh man, this is maybe another off broadcast show, but there's a lot to the way the book is written, in terms of segments, numbers, paragraphs, all that kind of stuff too.
go off broadcast because we've been on for stupid o'clock. I'm happy to
Yeah, I was
just
gonna
go
think
off
that too.
broadcast.
I don't
Yeah,
know
man.
how.
That's cool.
See you later, folks.
What do we do? Ring back?
Yeah, I'll just bring you guys on a call.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Cheers.
Great show. Right.
Take it easy.